People in chat saying I'm late. I can't be late to my own stream, you guys. That's not how it works. And if I'd started setting the timer to 20 minutes. I set it to 15, trying to be having it be aspirational, right? That I would be ready in 15 minutes, but I wasn't. But it was still less than what it was yesterday, and it was still less than what it was the day before. So it's like you didn't wait at all. Okay, what are we doing at almost 1 a.m? We're gonna lobotomize ourselves in Minecraft on stream, watching Trump versus Sean Hannity. But it's going to be a softball interview, so. Also, Ann Coulter went on Trigonometry, and she was like, the title is her talking shit about Trump, but I have a hard time believing that it's an hour of her talking shit about Trump. Copium with the beat was good, so all is forgiven. I changed it up for once you guys weren't getting Rhythm Heaven. Video unavailable? What? This was the link to the Trump thing. Hold on. My link to Trump on Hannity, which was a Fox News link, is now gone. Does the 1 a.m. mean the sleep schedule is not fixed? No, because if I go until 3 a.m. and I wake up at the time that I need to wake up at, I will still get like 6.5 hours. So it'll be fine. Trump, Hannity, interview. Why did this go away? I'm so annoyed. Okay, we already have to do change of plans. Night shift people appreciate the late night streaming, so thank you. Yeah, of course. I want to start streaming in the morning, but I'm trying to make partner also, and I'm like getting closer and closer and closer to the 75% average that you need. But if I start streaming in the morning, I'm going to lose all of that momentum. So I'm incentivized to actually do late night streams until I hit that, and then I can stream whenever I want. And it'll probably be earlier in the day. Okay, whatever. Let's get into, you know, fuck it. We're starting with PBD. It's a Straighterade stream. It's what I do best. All I want to do is react to PBD. It never gets old. So PBD was crying about gerrymandering. Ben Shapiro was crying about gerrymandering. Charlie Kirk crying about Gavin Newsom, which is related to the gerrymandering. So let's see what their arguments are, even though this is all in response to Republicans doing this shit. Newsom is a pro. California's redistricting plan threatens Republicans' control in 2026 midterms. I mean, that's like technically true. It does threaten their control, but it's like they're presupposing that they have like divine right to control everything in the country.
What Newsom said yesterday with the redistricting. Let me go to that one because she commented on that. So they had a meeting. They've been wanting to redistrict in a while, and his words were, "It's over for California." Okay, I think there was a quote. I got to find it to see which one it is. Rob, what clip do you have about the new statement he made about redistricting California?
Right here. This is what he says Donald Trump's plans are and why he wants redistricting so much.
Go for it.
Wake up, America. Wake up. You will not have a country if he rigs this election. You will have a president who will be running for a third term. Mark my word.
They're like, oh, get a load of this guy complaining about things like authoritarianism and not having a country.
I wasn't exaggerating when I said that I received in the mail.
Again, the context of this is we're talking about opposition to Republicans further entrenching their minoritarian rule by having a redistricting at a time that it's not typically done because they're not supposed to do it every 10 years in accordance with the census data. And they're already questioning the validity of census data to begin with. And they already don't have the votes that they need. Otherwise, if they did, they would not need to district in this way.
Trump 2028.
But it's Democrats that are like threatening authoritarianism or whatever.
From one of his biggest supporters. These guys are not screwing around. The rules do not apply to him. The most corrupt president in history. Doesn't believe in free enterprise, crony capitalism. He is wrecking this country, wrecking the economy.
Crony capitalism.
He's a lawless president.
Lies.
Wake up.
I want to take a side, of course, but then I have to remember, like, oh yeah, he's the lib. Oh yeah, he's a Dem. So.
Up, America.
We believe in things like crony capitalism.
Wake up.
Which are somehow different than like how capitalism is supposed to be working, apparently, which I guess, won't lead to monopolies or wealth concentration.
What's going on?
How many lies? Hold on, Adam, dead serious.
Look at Vinny in this fucking suit. Usually he's like, he looks like he just got like out of the gym, but he's here in this very ill-fitting blue suit, like he's ready to sell you a used car.
How many lies did he just say factually in that statement? Lawless, the economy sucks.
How many factual lies were in that statement? Vinny's gonna count for us.
And by the way, Rob, the one that I sent you, the image, I'm telling you right now, remember I made the bet with Sam Cedar, the most handsome
Are we able to speak our minds here? I don't want to get banned first time here. I mean, just follow my rules and you won't get banned.
guy in the world, that he said.
Although I'm sure whatever you have to say is not nearly as edgy as you think it's going to be.
That he was going to be the front runner. He's going to be the front runner. And just that, Rob, that right there, Pat. When you look at this, this is it. This is the presidential look that he's going for, and he's completely full of crap. And when you ask who's buying it, who's buying the Karen Bass? By the way, I'm shocked. She's even in the country, not on vacation when shit's going haywire. I'm shocked.
She wasn't on vacation. What they're referring to is the fact that she was like on a trip to Africa, but not for recreational or personal reasons when the LA wildfires began. But it was just unfortunate timing. I mean, you can complain about the LA governor the mayor of LA being anywhere other than LA 24/7, but it wasn't like a personal leave. And the idea that a MAGA supporter is going to bitch about any head of state, any public servant, any mayor, governor, senator, whoever taking vacations when it's like, you support Ted Cruz? Okay, yeah, your boy went to Cancun when there was a fucking freeze in Texas that left millions of people without power for days on end and like multiple people died. Completely preventable. Also Trump, who golfs constantly and vacations constantly. So shut the fuck up, dude.
I am shocked that they're doing it, but you said it, Adam. I'm sorry, Pat, you did. The scariest thing is he's not losing any support. Those people standing out there in Californians are like, yeah, and they're still going to vote for them even though their state is going down to, I can't even say.
Let me tell you one thing I know for sure. California is not America. We just came.
This disgusting like drink that they have in the corner here. I don't know. Can you guys see it? Hold on. No, it's like, of course, right where it's positioned. Looks gross. I have to nitpick.
Back from LA, and Pat did the debate, the Jubilee thing.
Oh,
wow.
I couldn't believe
These people are so far gone.
Oh my God.
That they can't be redeemed. Now, let me qualify this. They're actually smart. They're not idiots. They're well-read. They're educated. They have strong opinions. They got the vernacular. They know what's going on. But they're fighting the wrong fight. And they're defending the wrong people. And there's no switching these people. So if you're Gavin Newsom now, that's your audience. Gavin Newsom still is the governor of California. That's his first priority. Yes, he wants to be president of the United States one day, obviously like that. That's his audience. That's his megaphone. So he's saying the things that the people in California want to hear. These people are so far gone, they're not...
I mean, yes. He's trying to accurately represent his constituents' opinions and put them into law. That's true. He's doing what he isn't supposed to do, right?
Redeemable. Thank God that there's common sense people in the Midwest, in the Bible Belt, in Florida that are like, dude, save your crap for a person.
There's a lot of common sense people in California. That's the reason they've been planning.
We're contrasting. I mean, he already admitted that people in California, I guess, are more likely to be educated. That's probably true. But now, I guess common sense, it doesn't sound good to say like, yay for the uneducated people in the Midwest. So we have to say, thank God for the people with common sense. But that probably means like the people that whose education didn't go beyond high school.
The redistricting before anybody else was talking about redistricting because they freaked out about the compositional change to California after the election. And so he's out there rage baiting. He's out there the dog whistle to his followers. He's out there headline chasing, and he's trying to posture himself.
What dog whistle? He's not speaking in coded language. He is being explicitly clear about what he's doing, why he's doing it, and how it's in opposition to Republicans and saving democracy. He's not mincing words here, dude. This is like a fucking foghorn.
And he really has no record to run on. You look at the fires, you look at the economy, you look at the job loss, you look at California's tax, you look at what's going on, you look at the controversies that are having over what appears to be a land grab in the Palisades that's being done legislatively with laws. And you see a man without a country. Also, the minute he steps east of Las Vegas, the Democrat polls are different. J.B. Pritzker has got tremendous support. And so this primary is not in a FedEx being sent to Sacramento that says, hey, man, see you in February 28. you know, here it is, and it's your size. It's tailored for you. Come on, baby. The water's warm. That's not what Gavin Newsom's about to find. J.B. Pritzker and the DNC are...
It was a weird thing that he just said. Hey, like, get in the water's face, like mixing a bunch of different, like,
you know, here
metaphors.
And it's your size. It's tailored for you. Come on, baby. The water's warm.
It's tailored for you. Come on, baby. The water's warm.
That's not what Gavin Newsom's about to find. J.B. Pritzker and the DNC are really not with Gavin Newsom. That part's going to be fun to watch, but you can see what they're after right now. Mm-hmm. Trump's going to lose a midterm. Presidency ends in 17 months, and Speaker Jeffries back. Their focus is on the midterms, and they were going to redistrict California anyway. It's happening in plain sight. And no, they're not dumb. They're very shrewd, but they think we're evil. Liberals think conservatives are evil. We just think they're wrong, and we want to process it. Honestly,
Okay.
Tom, everything you said, I agree. You're right. The only thing I'll give you a caveat on, you said Gavin Newsom has no record to run on. That doesn't matter. The only thing that they have to run on is he's not Trump.
Okay. Oh, well, okay. I was like, he's actually kind of right here. He's like kind of spitting because voters don't really vote based on policy, or like even records necessarily. It a lot of the time comes down to like media bias, rhetoric, just a million different factors outside of like what it should be about, which is policy. But then he's pivoting to like, now they just run on being anti-Trump. If that was what worked, then they would have won, right? And I mean, they do that. And he's saying that like, that's the only thing that they have to run on. And he's going to win. Like they sound scared that he's going to win. But if that didn't work in 2024 and that didn't work in 2016, it's obviously not something you necessarily need to be scared of.
Trump is evil. Bad. I agree with it that it doesn't work. Yeah. But that's the platform.
Yeah. So by the way, if they
I mean, I think the issue is saying that like Donald Trump is an authoritarian and then not backing it up with action. And Gavin Newsom is actually doing both of these things at once. And I think that's why you see a lot of support with the Zoran campaign, because he's not just talking about opposing Trump. He's talking about the ways that he's going to do it, the specific, and he's offering an alternative on top of it and showing like, here's what needs to change for us to not keep running into candidates like this and like defeat Maga. You know, if Gavin keeps that energy up, then that's not, I think it's like way too reductive to say that's just running on Trump bad.
Redistrict the way they want to redistrict. Okay, right now they got a 43-9 lead. Okay, and remember with House, you know, midterms around the corner, so this redistricting is purely for midterms to see who's going to get bumped out. It looks like Crockett is gone. So now, Rob, can you pull up who are the 9 Republican House of Representatives in the state of California? Who are the 9 House of Republican representatives? In California. Let's see which one of these guys are a threat. Like who is actually a formidable name that gets in the way out of all the names? Darrell Issa. Okay.
You know, and I think another reason, a thing that like, a reason why Democrats failed is like there's too much reliance on not just opposition to Trump without an alternative, but they're actually talking about, you know, strengthening existing institutions that Americans are broadly dissatisfied with. And I think the reason why Gavin is managing to reinvigorate people with this specific measure surrounding the redistricting is, even though it's like not a sexy issue, he's actually bucking the status quo and is showing these institutions or these norms have failed us. They have led to further Republican minoritarian rule, further MAGA policies and control of states and areas where they should not be in control based off of voter demographics and patterns. And fuck that. You know, if we have to play by the rules, like we're not going to play by an honor system with dishonorable people that are not actually going to hold up their end of the norm. So I think it's refreshing for voters to see somebody actually point out, yeah, all of those institutions, actually some of them had issues and maybe they aren't worth saving, or to the extent that they're being restored, maybe there also needs to be some transformation with that. And he's sexy. I will ban, there will be no Newsom simping in my chat. Newsom is a wax figurine. He looks so uncanny valley to me. I don't understand how people, he looks like he would play like a villain politician in a movie or a show.
A stud.
He's a stud. Ken Calvert, young.
But they agree. He's a stud. He's a stud. I think they were talking about Newsom, right? Unless who else were they talking about?
All the names. Darrell Issa. Okay.
He's a stud.
He's a stud.
Oh, okay. Darrell Issa. Okay. Who are they simping for? This guy's a Republican. He's a stud. This man. It's PBD.
Ken Calvert, Young Kim, Jay David,
Young
Vince
Kim.
Fong.
Is that a
Vince
rapper?
Fong.
Young Kim?
Tom, you know who Vince Vaughn is?
Yeah, we met him.
We met him. Yep.
He's
Vince
like, yeah,
Vaughn
the
is,
Asian-
who
he
camped
took,
Kevin
Vince
McCarthy.
Vaughn.
Yeah, Vince Vaughn is in Central Valley around Bakersfield. Took Kevin McCarthy's seat.
That's right. So Tom McClintock, Kevin, so all of these guys are targeted. That's who they're targeting. They're targeting these nine.
Dems oppose Trump on problems, not solutions, and most people can agree with Trump. There are problems in the status quo. Yeah. So, like, if you run on that and that alone of, like, we're not going back and, you know, fuck Donald Trump, America's already great type mentality, you're, like, going to lose people.
Nine names. So if they redistrict, and the way that I think they're going to redistrict, 4 or 5 of these guys are going to lose their jobs. So 4 or 5 lose their jobs. It has nothing to do with California because California is already 43-9. It's about what the majority of the House. Rob, go to see the split right now, how many Dems and how many Republicans have. Like the percentage of controlling the House. What is the number? Do you know what the number is, Tom? I know Republicans are up, but by how many?
10
though?
maybe, give or take.
It's not a big number. It's not like they're up 40. The score is a very close score. What is the number?
Like it's a game.
Let's see here. So if you look at this, you got what, 219 to 217. So check this out. So if he's able to, so if he's
okay, so 7 seats. Gotcha.
So if he's able to flip 4 in California, you know what that does? Add 4 to Democrats, which is 216. Take 4 away from Democrats.
We're ignoring the fact that if Texas redistricts and gerrymanders, they're also going to pick up additional seats. That is what this is in response to. Them not covering that, or to the extent that maybe they did, which I'm sure was to praise it, saying, we have to do this. I'm sure they made it sound like Democrats are the first ones to do this shit, or that they do it to a larger degree.
Which is 215. Democrats not control the House. If Abbott does redistricting, which they just got approved by the Senate, even though the other 9 people didn't vote, they go and they do flip 5. So that's the 5-4 plus minus. 1 goes to Republicans. But who else will be doing that? DeSantis is talking about being able to do it in Florida, but in Florida they can't do it dramatically like some of these other places can do it with these weird salamander type of stuff that they're doing.
Sensible law somebody did 100 years ago in Florida.
That's right. So the reality of it is the Democrat, and Newsom is trying to say, I'm going to do, and you know, in a way, he's saying destroy the Republican Party for many years to come. If he
does Dems taking the House even achieve anything if we don't also take the Senate? Absolutely. Absolutely. If they take the House, then they have, like, things can die in the House and never reach the Senate in the first place. If they had control of the House, they could prevent a lot of legislation from even heading to the Senate floor and becoming law.
Does this, he's putting the onus now on Trump. But again, Newsom is a professional politician, and he knows what he's doing here. Every once in a while, we get new things that come up for summer
merch. So they're just off in a different reality. It's weird. It's like they characterize it as like it's threatening Republican control in 2026. This is like, I guess, technically a descriptive claim. And all they said was, oh, he's crazy. And for doing this isn't fair. As if these people, these Republicans in these seats have like a divine right to be there. Okay. What's Charlie Kirk's beef with him?
You know something I love?
No. Gavin Newsom is inauthentic and fraudulent. Oh, am I going to fucking agree with Charlie Kirk? Let's see. I really hope that doesn't happen.
Good afternoon and live from Texas. If
they had enough of the House and Senate, they could impeach Trump, right? I didn't if he'd leave, but you know, well, you can be impeached, but that's different than being removed from office. He would need his own party to turn on him to realistically to be removed from office. That's the only reason why there was even like a chance that Nixon was going to be impeached or removed from office before he resigned. But MAGA Republicans not turning on him, so.
Is the Will Cain Show. We begin today out west in California. In dramatic fashion, Governor Gavin Newsom pulling a 5-alarm fire, not for the burning of the Palisades. Real fire in the state of California doesn't demand the attention of Gavin Newsom. Instead, he's pulled the 5-alarm fire for...
That's what we're going for. Okay.
Democracy.
Remember when Donald Trump threatened to withhold emergency relief funds from that particular state? But Gavin Newsom doesn't care about his constituents, right? Trump threatens to withhold fire relief money from twice. So in 2024, September, Trump threatens to cut wildfire aid if California doesn't deliver more water. Governor Gavin Newsom said all Americans should be alarmed that the former president wants to block emergency disaster funds to settle political vendettas. And then June 18, 2025, Trump suggests he may withhold disaster aid over his feud with Newsom. President Trump and Governor Gavin Newsom have traded sharp insults in recent days as California awaits billions of dollars of federal wildfire relief. Speaking to reporters outside the White House, Mr. Trump was asked if recent dust ups with Newsom, a Democrat, would affect California's request for $40 billion in wildfire aid. Yeah, maybe, Mr. Trump said, adding later, it could impact, hatred is never a good thing in politics. When you don't like somebody, you don't respect somebody. It's harder for that person to get money if you're on top. Mr. Trump referred to the governor at one point as New Scum, a nickname he has frequently used to insult Mr. Newsom and their recent rancor. Last week, Mr. Newsom sued Mr. Trump in an attempt to stop the president's mobilization of military forces across LA. This is the ICE raid protests. But who is it again that doesn't care about the fires?
A 5-alarm fire, not for the burning of the Palisades. Real fire in the state of California doesn't demand the attention of Gavin Newsom. Instead, he's pulled the 5-alarm fire for democracy.
We tried to play by a higher set of standards and rules with our independent...
Also, the way that he frames that like it's a bad thing, like this guy sounding the alarm on democracy. Fucking loser, am I right?
And we believe in that. We are talking about emergency measures to respond to what's happening in Texas. We will pick up 5 seats with the consent of the people.
Consent of the people. I'm going to write that down. Remember that phrase. Consent of the people. Political talent is an interesting concept. It certainly exists. In this job, I've come across many politicians. Some are charming, some are not. Some have rhetorical skill, some stumble over their words. Some you are simply drawn to, some you are repelled. Fraudulence is a political talent. The ability to lie is a skill, and it's once been pulled off by the governor of California.
This dude is like dead behind the eyes.
But much like our conversation earlier this week with rising star Texas Democrat James Tallarico, fraudulence will eventually be exposed. And with every breath he utters, Gavin Newsom's fraudulence becomes more clear, his political talent more barren. Consent of the people. A Politico poll shows California voters back independent congressional maps, meaning they prefer an independent panel draw the House district lines.
And this doesn't surprise me at all. Most Democrats oppose gerrymandering. But it might be, I wonder if the poll's more complicated, that like when they poll Democrats on the outcome, they're okay with it, but the mechanism that they use, they're not cool with. So Politico poll, California redistricting. Let's see. And this is why he's making the pitch to voters. California voters back independent congressional maps, complicating Gavin Newsom's redistricting push. Faces a major hurdle in his quest to revamp his state's congressional lines, according to a new poll. Californians' deep support for its current independent redistricting commission. By nearly a 2-to-1 margin, voters prefer keeping an independent line drawing panel to determine the state's House seats, the latest Politico Citron Center Possibility Lab survey found. Just 36% of respondents back returning congressional district authorities to state lawmakers. It's not surprising in the sense that California has voted twice for this independent review commission not all that long ago, says Jack Citron, a veteran political science professor at UC Berkeley and partner on the poll. And there's a lot of mistrust and cynicism about politicians and the legislature. That's reflected here as well. California Democrats are plowing ahead with a high-stakes gambit to redraw the state's lines to counter a proposed gerrymander by Texas Republicans spurred by President Donald Trump. California officials are expected to unveil newly redrawn maps at the end of this week that would position Democrats to nab 5 extra seats, neutralizing the Texas redraw. Should be fucking based. Newsom, who kicks off the campaign in earnest on Thursday, has cast himself as both reluctant and eager to engage in an escalating redistricting war. He and fellow Dems have repeatedly emphasized how Texas Republicans started this fight and vowed that any measure to overhaul the districts in California would only be triggered if Texas moves ahead. Texas Democrats have fled the state to stall the vote on the GOP-friendly maps, although Governor Greg Abbott said he will continue to call for new special legislative sessions until the Democrats return. California Dems have also, and they've returned already, and they're going to do a vote. Does YouTube decide to just delete chats randomly? It doesn't decide to delete them, but if like it, I have the, I don't know, like an auto mod feature set to it, and it will like auto mod certain terms. that I wouldn't think that it would, but I noticed that like they'll show up on screen, but if I actually tried to respond to them in chat, I couldn't because they're not, it's like, it's on the chat. Where am I? California Dems have also promised not to do away with the state's independent redistricting commission entirely. Instead, they plan to ask voters to approve a constitutional amendment that would put new maps approved by the legislature in effect for the 26, 28, and 2030 election cycles, according to legislative sources familiar with the draft measure. The independent panel would then resume its role as the state's line drawer after the 2030 census. So the survey found why Democrats are stopping short of jettisoning the commission. The poll shows independent redistricting enjoys widespread popularity among the general public, with 64% support overall and across party affiliations. Independent voters were the most enthusiastic backers of the panel, with 72% in favor of the commission keeping its line drawing authority. Support among Republicans and Democrats was roughly equal, 66% and 61%, respectively, marking a rare spot of bipartisan agreement in this hyper-polarized political moment. That surprised me a bit, given that this is being pushed so heavily by Newsom and by the Democratic Party nationally that we have to combat Texas, Citron said. Why? This is so, like, they barely started this push. They wouldn't be doing it if it weren't for Texas Republicans. Public opinion doesn't change overnight. Older respondents were more likely to favor the independent commission, with 77% of people aged 80 and older in favor of keeping the status quo. Still, a healthy majority of younger voters, including 62% of Gen Z and millennials, supported the commission as well. I feel like this poll doesn't entirely tell the truth, because it's like, again, would you still support an independent commission if the political landscape is such that you have Texas Democrats attempting to rig the midterms 2 years in advance, and that this move would neutralize that and level the playing field, and that it wouldn't actually happen if Republicans weren't doing this, because Gavin Newsom has already said he'd back off. Also, they plan to institute it only up until 2030, and then they'd go back to the commissions. The independent commission's popularity has grown over time. Californians narrowly approved the creation of an independent panel in 2008, taking the power to draw the boundaries of legislative districts away from lawmakers and given to a citizen commission. I mean, so this is suggesting that, like, at one point they didn't feel this passionately about. That could easily change. I think the voters will approve it. I think the voters understand what's at stake. Newsom said in a news conference last Friday, "We live in the most un-Trump state in America," which is true. Last week, legislators were briefed on an internal survey by Newsom's pollster, David Binder, which found a redistricting measure with multiple elements, including designating the new maps as temporary, only valid if Texas proceeds, started with a slim majority support, 52%. It grew in popularity when the messaging became more overtly partisan. Democrats, wow, shocker. Voters actually like politicians with the spine and that are unabashed in the positions and policies that they hold. Crazy. Democrats have already signaled that strategy, trotting out talking points about fighting fire with fire and rejecting Trump's power grab. Still, the public wariness of lawmaker-drawn maps captured in the polls suggests an uphill climb for Newsom and Democrats. If this is the starting point, then they will have a struggle. They're also presupposing that, like, politicians don't do shit that's unpopular with their base all the fucking time and they don't actually face any punishment for it. So they looked at 445 registered voters selected at random, conducted English and Spanish, oversample of Hispanic voters. Interesting.
By nearly a 2-to-1 margin. How will Gavin Newsom, with a special session, redraw the California map to be more gerrymandering than it already exists with the consent of the people? He will try to do it by setting a 5-alarm fire.
Again, these narratives only work if you just completely ignore the context that, okay, but what's it in response to, dude? Why are they doing this? Are you leaving out the fact that he's saying he's not going to do it if Texas backs down? You're not giving people a complete story. If you look at polling on this issue in Texas, I wouldn't be surprised if Texas voters, Dems, Republicans, and independents favor independent commissions for redistricting lines than they do lawmakers who can obviously rig it so it has a partisan advantage.
And pointing out Texas.
This is the difference between what's happening in Texas and
Okay, so he mentions Texas. Let's see.
happening here in California. We didn't receive a phone call from the President of the United States to then quietly go in the back room and start drawing maps and legislatively try to jam them through against the consent of the people. We're doing precisely the opposite. We're working through a very transparent, temporary, and public process.
That's who we are.
We're putting the maps on the ballot, and we're giving the power to the people.
Something that seems to have escaped the attention of Democrats. Texans have, in overwhelming majorities, voted for Republicans. Americans have handed the levers of power through the democratic process.
This argument is all over the place. So because nationally, there's federal control in all three branches of Republicans, suddenly states should not be empowered to represent the will of their voters because voters have already spoken in an election in 2024. Therefore, what again?
In the House, the Senate, and the presidency, to Republicans. Their policies are not popular. Democrats cannot govern with the consent of the people. And now that their techniques are being mimicked in some...
Okay, dude, chill. This is like the first election, I don't know how many fucking years that Republicans got the popular vote.
Some place like Texas, to draw more favorable lines, they are the ones setting, much like the fires in Palisades, a 5-alarm fire. Well, Newsom's fans weren't the
He
only
thinks it's like such a good bar.
one at that afternoon event. Border Patrol agents spotted outside the rally as well, arresting suspected illegal immigrants. This reflects the consent of the people, restoring law and order on the streets of California. The governor blasting the move, though, he wrote on X, Trump's private army is illegally on private property. We will not be intimidated by this weak little man. The way he wrote that, it's not lost on people. He's LARPing President Trump. And his office has been doing so now for a couple of days. Take a look at some of these posts. They wrote, make the maps great again. Big, beautiful rally today.
So this is the cope that his tweets mirroring Donald Trump's, which obviously it's obvious to him how asinine they look when you see a Democrat doing it. The cope is that, oh, he's LARPing. You can't actually live up to how Trump screams into the ether. When Democrats do it, it's fucking lame.
Thank you for your attention to this matter. It's like a college sophomore trying to take English 101. They still haven't yet found their voice. So the only thing he knows how to do is copy. I guess imitation is the greatest form of flattery. But while Newsom focuses on not his
okay, dude,
state and not the crisis in the economy or literally in the hills of California, and instead focuses on national politics, his state is still reeling from the effects of the LA fires. And many, many are still looking for accountability.
If that's his point, that, oh, you guys are actually the ones ignoring states' rights, and if we're just only going off of like national consensus, then Republicans won with sweeping majorities, so you're the hypocrite here or whatever. If that's where he's going with it, I can see the point that he's trying to make. Just think it's stupid.
I had meetings today with the type of people that can ensure what happened in my town won't ever happen again. This is America. We fight. Justice is coming.
So that right there, that's reality star Spencer Pratt. He lost his home in January in the LA fires, and now he's on a mission to find answers. He has said he knows things now, things that should terrify Gavin Newsom. Joining me now is Turning Point USA founder Charlie Kirk. Charlie, it's great to see you here today. As always, you're an astute observer of politics. It's really something to see what's happened to the Democrat Party. Now, we've had that conversation, but there's something uniquely...
He thinks it's unironically copying and not mocking. These people are delusional. He has to frame it that way because they have to pretend like, oh, there's nothing to mock. They're just so in awe of Trump's abilities to persuade people and how he speaks to you know, how he riffs or whatever. And they're trying to make it sound like, oh, he just wants to be Trump so badly, doesn't he?
Uniquely, such a repellent about Gavin Newsom and now what he's trying to do in California.
That's right. And just to reiterate your phenomenal open, Proposition 11 was voted on by the peak gerrymandering out of the hands of politicians and into this independent commission. Now, it's far from perfect. Some of the maps in California are a little bit creative, to say the least, a little circuitous. But however, it did have some sort of a spirit that the people of California did not want politics involved in the drawing of their maps. In fact, a recent poll shows that 64% of Californians do not want to see Gavin Newsom do this. But Gavin Newsom needs to dig himself out of a hole. This is what it's all about.
I mean, that's not what that poll said. We just went over that. I'm assuming he's citing the same Politico poll that we were just looking at. There's a difference between, I mean, data only measures exactly what it sets out to measure. What it said is that voters favor independent commissions, but let's introduce some nuance. Let's introduce the context of how they're going about doing it. Even in his messaging, he's promising voters that, again, he will not do this if Republicans don't end up doing it in Texas, for one. For two, it's only going to be temporary. It's not really like it would be a far more difficult pitch if they were going to do it permanently or indefinitely, but it would only be until 2030. Again, less than 10 years.
This is about Gavin Newsom's failed podcast strategy. Gavin Newsom had a podcast strategy, which I was the first guest
Which you went on, dude.
Where he was going to try to moderate himself and try to do the bro-y podcast culture, of which he was really bad at. He didn't know his facts, his figures. He didn't really know how to deal with facts like
See,
myself.
it's a good sign that Charlie Kirk is like, yeah, you failed as a podcast, bro, where you're like, said you were going to do, like, how come you're not doing the thing that you said you were going to do, which is moderate? Yeah, fuck that.
Himself and other people. And he thought
it's good that Gavin Newsom is seeing that this middle of the road shit is exactly why Trump won in 2024 to begin with and abandoned it and is pivoting.
Going to be welcomed in as the 2028 Democrat candidate. But the Democrat Party, they do not want someone to start a podcast.
Democrat Party.
Quote, fighter against Donald Trump.
Correct. You say, just because you say that in a stupid voice does not make it any less true. Democrats do not want, or like Democratic voters do not want Democrats cozying up with Republicans. They want them opposing them and not finding a middle ground with fascists.
All Gavin Newsom cares about is being president of the United States. That's all he cares about. That's all that this is. This is a 2028 strategy. And so Gavin Newsom is going to try to call a special session to overturn the will of the voters. I thought it was all about democracy, right, Wilkin? It's not democracy.
I mean, he's not unilaterally able to do this. It still has to go through the state legislature.
It's about oligarchy. And the baseline component of all of this.
It's about oligarchy. By the way, I support Donald Trump, a literal billionaire.
Is that the people of California, Republican and Democrat, socialist and libertarian, they don't want politicians involved in the drawing of the maps. Gavin Newsom does not care because he wants to be president more than listen to the voters of California.
Charlie, you remind me of something there. I had forgotten that you were the first guest into Gavin Newsom's attempt to podcast. You know, I talked about his fraudulence is so transparent. What was he like in person, Charlie? When you sat there, is he capable of being authentically charming? Does he have the...
Again, we just went on like a screed about how they're ignoring the will of the voters when it's Texas, this again, in response to Texas Republicans doing this shit, doing it earlier than they're supposed to, literally holding a special session so they can do it. Thank you for the follow. So they can do it. They don't have to wait 10 years to do it and they can seal the midterms now. But I guess we're not going to talk about the will of those Texas voters.
The mannerisms of it mastered, or is it exposed over a period of time? What was it like being around Gavin Newsom?
I mean, he can pass a lie detector test. I mean, this guy can win anybody over. But if you understand, it's all about the pursuit of power. This is a guy that will say anything and do anything to be in charge. His entire life has been about the ascension and accumulation of political power. And you made a really good point in your open. It's not about making sure that they could rebuild Los Angeles. Not a matter of being able to deliver results for the people of the Palisades. Not to be able to make sure that the schools of California...
Projection. It's projection, and it's also like... This is literally just the Spider-Man meme. Anybody who's in politics obviously is interested in having more attention on them and amassing more power. Kind of what the whole point of politics, right?
Functioning. Right now, there is a bill that is going to head to Gavin Newsom's desk that would legalize some form of child kidnapping. Is AB 495 that is working its way through Sacramento right now. But Gavin Newsom, what he was like personally, is honestly someone that is super inauthentic and honestly fraudulent. You contrast that with President Trump, who I saw him the other day. He is the exact same person in private that he is in public. What you see in private, we get in public. There is no fakery. There is no inauthenticity. But we have to understand that this national fight that Gavin Newsom is trying to pick, by the way, who is he to say, well, Donald Trump missed the deadline? You're the governor of a failed state that has the greatest climate on the planet that is losing population. You have to act.
Charlie's face looking extra small today. So while they're concerned trolling about the will of the voters, this is from September 2021. This is the most recent survey that I could find. Most Texans oppose gerrymandering, disagree that party in power should be able to rig political maps. With the GOP-controlled legislature beginning redistricting Monday, 54% of all voters of all political stripes are against allowing partisan map manipulation. A majority of Texans are against gerrymandering, disagreeing that the party in power should be able to intentionally draw political maps to favor one party. With the Republican-controlled state legislature beginning the redistricting process on Monday, 54% of Texans of all political stripes opposed allowing partisan map manipulation. On the other hand, 22% agreed the majority party should call the shots. The poll surveyed 1,148 registered voters and has a margin of error of plus or minus 2.9 percentage points. It surveyed Texas voters on a wide range of state and political issues. The public is not looking for a redistricting process that's going to point to Democrats being excluded from meetings or those communities led by Democrats being split up into multiple districts, said pollster Mark Owens, who teaches political science at UT. The poll showed Texans preferred an independent commissions to draw the maps, a polarizing process that typically leads to court battles. Texas must add 2 new U.S. House districts and redraw congressional and state legislative boundaries after the release of new population data from the U.S. Census. Republicans currently command the legislature, meaning they run the redistricting process. Asked who they would trust most to determine the district boundaries, 36% of registered voters preferred an independent commission and 20% preferred the state legislature. Voters might have a little less trust in state legislatures, which in the past has shown aspects of partisan gerrymandering. Some additional checks and balances are what voters want to see. So in Texas, this is not supported, and they're doing a special session to be able to put this into place, specifically gerrymander against the will of their own constituents, for one. Then there's this other one. Let's see. This looks more recent. Texas ignited a gerrymandering war. We will all pay the price. This was published August 5th of this year, I believe. The 2026 midterms might not be decided by tariffs, President Donald Trump's approval ratings, or even Sydney Sweeney's divisive American Eagle ad, but by gerrymandering. Just a handful of seats separate the two parties, but first Republicans and now Dems are angling for more before votes are cast. Texas Republicans stand ready to adopt a new map that could award them as many as 5 additional seats in the U.S. House. Ohio, Missouri, and other red states are prepared to go next. Democrats, meanwhile, might retaliate by redrawing lines in Illinois or even upending California's independent commission. Lawmakers in blue New York, New Jersey, and Maryland are weighing options as well. It's dangerous enough for fair elections and representation that the gerrymandering wars have reignited mid-decade with such dramatic consequences, especially since frustrated voters had success forming nonpartisan coalitions and winning reforms just a short time ago. This scourge could have been ended. Instead, the astonishing victories and hopes for fair representation could be extinguished as both parties race to claim every seat they can, and electoral reform becomes another polarizing, hyperpartisan blood sport. Talking about this, but where do you get into the data? Yeah, redistricting reform became a rallying cry that united Democrats, Republicans, and independents nationwide. Florida's initiative that created constitutional language banning partisan gerrymandering won with upward of 62% of the vote during the 2010 Tea Party wave. Nearly 3/4 of Ohio voters embraced reform in May 2018. Missouri also reformed its process with 62% support later that year, and it was just a fraction lower in Michigan, where a commission was enacted with 61%. While the U.S. Supreme Court called partisan gerrymandering a political issue that could not be adjudicated by federal courts in 2019's Rousseau versus Common Cause, the opinion by Chief Justice John Roberts, Jr. approvingly cited all these successes as proof that the people could handle this issue by themselves. But when politicians, especially in red states, steamrolled or ignored reforms, Roberts had cut off the ability of federal courts to provide a solution. What happened to the reforms won by voters? Well, the power to draw lines, protect incumbents, and tilt maps often proved impossible to separate from politicians. They gerrymandered away. Sometimes courts caught up. Mostly, politicians got away with it. All I'm hearing is that Gavin Newsom could do this, even if it was far, far, far more overwhelmingly unpopular explicitly, and he probably won't face too many consequences for it. So, which is why, again, he's angling for a national run. So that's why he's doing this shit. It's not just about his constituents. I don't even disagree with them when they say that. But what do you know? Politicians, especially red states, are the ones that are ignoring that voters supported these independent commissions, but they're over here concerned trolling about, this is against the will of the voters. How could they do this? This is so stupid. They shouldn't be doing it.
Actively try to get people to leave California. If anyone's leaving California, they're doing so unwillingly. If people are leaving California, that means you have turned it into a smoldering crater of its former self. And Gavin Newsom, he just wants to be the king of the ashes, even though California is an unrecognizable state of its current self.
Such a great point. You were gifted this.
If Texas is only plus 10 Republicans and we see a plus 20 swing like we did in Wisconsin, we could see Texas turn entirely blue because they cut margins too thin. Y'all get too fucking excited. We are staring down Republicans redistricting and picking up a bunch of seats, and you're talking about Texas turning blue potentially? Y'all are nuts, man. Way more optimistic than I am.
Sierra Nevada's in the Pacific Ocean, the world's 5th largest economy, and you literally drove people out of your state.
That's
exactly words are such a plaything on the left. They are bent and tortured into whatever it is you want them to mean. And of course, they've always loved to torture the concept of democracy, always overlooking we are a constitutional republic. But for years, we were told if you question the integrity of an election, then you are actually
instead of a democracy, or like what? I hate when they draw that stupid false dichotomy. It's like the classic go-to dumb guy intellectual conservative of like, actually, we're not a democracy, we're a constitutional republic. Those are not mutually exclusive. They're completely compatible with each other.
And yet here is Gavin Newsom saying that Donald Trump is trying to rig an election.
Here is Gavin Newsom accurately explaining to voters what Donald Trump and Republicans are openly stating their intention to do.
Sight before one vote is cast in the 2026 midterm election. And here he is once again trying to rig the system. He doesn't play by a different set of rules. He doesn't believe in the rules. And as a consequence, we need to disabuse ourselves of the way things have been done.
That's just a more palatable way of saying what was said by Robert Francis O'Rourke. F the rules.
Well, that's right. And look,
why are they calling O'Rourke that?
Democrats, they're in free-for-all. They're in disarray. We know that. And the question is, which
I guess they don't want to, like, I guess it's like somebody calling Netanyahu Benjamin instead of Bibi.
They going to go. And Gavin Newsom thought the Democrat
is straight, dating anyone? Yes, my darling boyfriend, Lycan.
Party would want some moderation on all of this. That was his original strategy when it came to his podcast, as I mentioned. But he quickly realized the Democrat Party, all they want is political power. They don't care about principles. They don't care about the betterment of D.C., Philadelphia, Atlanta, Chicago, Detroit, Boston, New York, Seattle, Portland, Los Angeles, San Francisco. They control all those cities that are disasters and awful forms of how they used to be. So Gavin Newsom, he wants to change the rules in the middle of the game. And also, the Democrats, they want to say, gerrymandering.
Gavin Newsom wants to introduce legislation that's going to be decided on by the state legislature, which may, again, still die, and is conditional upon how Republicans act. He says that like it's a scary thing. Like, Democrats or like politicians are doing some like fundamentally evil or immoral thing by introducing legislation, even if it's polarizing.
Gerrymandering's the worst thing ever. You look at Illinois. Illinois is like the petri dish of American gerrymandering. But Gavin Newsom is a perfect example of somebody that stands for nothing except himself.
Who cares if it's like Illinois was the first place where it started, if overall Republicans have engaged in it far more. That is a fantastic red herring, though, saying that, like, drawing attention to where, like, it may, like, even if I granted, I don't know if that's true, that it started there, instead of, like, why would we care about that, though? What you should actually care about is, like, okay, but who engages in it more overall, Democrats or Republicans? It's obviously Republicans.
About is the personal accumulation of political power. And I just want to repeat this. 64% of the people of his extremely liberal state do not want to see him do this. And so much for democracy, Gavin Newsom. You're going to overturn a ballot measure to do this. Why? Because you want to try to resurrect your gutter bottom polling that shows that you don't have a great chance of being the Democrat nominee.
Gutter bottom polling?
Right. You're trying to make yourself relevant again by overturning the will of the people of California.
Beto O'Rourke said, F the rules, grab some power. Gavin Newsom.
I mean, it's being characterized as risky because it may not happen.
Said, pick me.
And he's like exerting a lot of political will and capital to try to make it happen.
I'll take the power. Charlie Kirk, it's always great to see you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe.
Jump scare. Okay. Now let's see. Benny Boys. What his tiers look like on this. Newsom's revenge redistricting, at least he's being honest that, yes, it is in revenge to Republicans doing this shit in the first place. We're not going to just judge it in isolation. We're actually putting it in the context that it exists in, where if Republicans don't do it, he won't do it. How big is the possibility of this referendum they're holding not going through and this just being a huge optical loss? Is this a sure thing? I don't know. I'm not sure. Plus the sandwich throwing resistance. We covered this last night. Let's see. I can't wait. If he gets angry over the sandwich throwing, it's going to be so funny.
Up here on the Ben Shapiro Show, Gavin Newsom is launching his redistricting effort.
Whoa. Do they need to, like, chill with the mic? Let's see.
In the most colorful possible way. President Trump is unleashing ice right outside that redistricting.
His audio sounds so terrible. He's, like, clearly peaking.
Which is highly amusing. Plus, we get to Taylor Swift's album and male cheerleaders in the NFL and all the rest. First, How would you like a chance to win a trip to Nashville for yourself and a friend to meet me and experience a live taping of this show at the Daily Wire headquarters? Well, when you pre-order my new book, Lions and Scavengers, and register it at dailywire.com/Ben.
The True Story of America.
The first 2 chapters of the book immediately. You'll also be entered for a chance to win 1 of 10 limited edition hoodies, 1 of 5 personal phone calls from me. Yeah.
Jesus Christ, dude. Okay, here we go.
Right now, join millions just like you at dailywireplus.com. Well, Gavin Newsom, the California governor, he is running for the nomination for the Democratic Party in 2028, and he has a plan, a redistricting plan. I know, very, very exciting stuff. He is acting all hot and bothered about the fact that the Texas state legislature is going to redistrict, which they are allowed to do by all available and applicable law in the state of Texas. California, they're really not supposed to do this. In California, the state constitution says that you redistrict every 10 years with the census.
Okay, so now we're back to states' rights.
And also that there's an independent commission that is supposed to be doing the redistricting. Well, now Gavin Newsom has decided it's his moment. Now,
well, if he actually paid attention to what they're talking about floating, it would be temporary, end in 2030. It's entirely contingent upon what Republicans decide to do, which at least he's partially honest about that. And it's not going to completely eradicate that independent commission.
Gavin Newsom believes that it's always his moment. That's the thing about Gavin Newsom. He has never not had a moment. Just in the last few months, you've had the Gavin Newsom moment over the fires where he...
As opposed to Trump, a guy who's definitely not completely in love with himself, who literally was a reality TV show host before he ran for president and won twice. Definitely not addicted to the fucking media, who earlier today was saying that he loves sparring with reporters because it feels like winning a game of golf, or it's like a hole-in-one or some shit. Not kidding, he said that. But Gavin Newsom loves attention.
In President Trump somehow for giant fires that were happening in his state. And then you had the Gavin Newsom moment over illegal immigration, where he claimed that President Trump was trying to fascistically take over the state of California. And now the third Gavin Newsom moment in the past 6 months, he is now claiming that he is going to redistrict the state of California in order to fight back against those evil Texas state legislators who are attempting to redistrict and put the state more in line with its actual political proclivities. Well, according to the Wall Street Journal, California Democrats are planning their own redistricting effort to counter President Trump's push for a new congressional map in Texas to create more Republican House seats. So he laid out a plan on Thursday to redraw the state's congressional maps to put Democrats in position to flip 5 seats in the 2026 midterm elections. He called for a special November 4th election to put the maps before California voters. And he said we have to meet fire with fire. Here he was yesterday explaining his plan.
Ben Shapiro at least giving viewers like how he plans to get this done. Charlie Kirk and the Fox guys completely rely on making it sound like Gavin Newsom is going to unilaterally do this against the will of the voters, and not like he has to bring it to a ballot for them to vote on.
We'll be asking for the people on November 4th, a special election coinciding with a lot of local municipal elections, to provide a temporary pathway for congressional maps. We will affirm our commitment to the state independent redistricting after the 2030 census, but we're asking the voters for their consent to do midterm redistricting in 2026, 2028, and 2030 for the congressional maps, to respond to what's happening in Texas, to respond what Trump is trying to excite.
Now, you might be saying to yourself, wait, hold up. I thought that California was one of the states that has an independent redistricting commission in an attempt to prevent things like what Gavin Newsom is doing right now. And the answer is they do. That's true. And also,
and they'll never say, do you think Texas should have this sort of thing? Or ask them, so if Texas already had an independent commission, do we honestly believe that Republicans wouldn't be trying to subvert it, get rid of it, eliminate it, bend the rules so that they could redistrict in the way that they see fit, to gerrymander in a partisan way? Do we actually think that Ben Shapiro thinks that Republicans absolutely would ignore voters, as they always do, to get their agenda done?
So California does not have very many Republican seats in the first place. In fact, the state of California is split about 60-40, Democrat to Republican, but Democrats hold an extraordinary number of seats in the state of California, like many, many more seats than 60%. And yet he wants to redistrict anyway. Why? Well, as a response to President Trump's supposed craziness. Here's Gavin Newsom suggesting we have to fight fire with fire, which again is sort of a bad metaphor for him to be using, considering his state is legitimately and literally on fire every couple of months, thanks to his forestation policies.
Did you know that Gavin Newsom invented forest fires and conditions like dry, arid land that lends itself to being at a higher risk for wildfires? Gavin Newsom actually invented that. He brought that to California.
We have got to recognize the cards that have been dealt, and we have got to meet fire with fire. And we've got to be held to a higher level of accountability. So that's what this is about. It's not complicated. We're doing this in reaction to a president of the United States.
And it's so interesting to see how they treat a natural disaster handled by a Democrat. Every single failing, every single death, you can blame and pin directly on Gavin Newsom. Contrast that against COVID or like the Texas floods. We'll use a more recent example. Can we blame Greg Abbott, Ken Paxton, Dan Patrick, every single fucker in the Texas legislature for these people dying? Or Donald Trump because he defunded FEMA? Or Kristi Noem because she failed to sign, to renew contracts that would have helped provide people with access to emergency service calls that they desperately needed while they're trying to get their life in order after this fucking flood? No, we can't blame any of that on Republicans because then that's unfair because you're blaming like weather conditions on the people in charge. But when it comes to Democrats or anyone on the left, it's completely fine to say like, yeah, they're unilaterally and personally responsible. Gavin Newsom actually set every single person in California's house on fire personally.
States that called a sitting governor of the state of Texas and said, find me 5 seats.
California currently has 52 congressional seats, and 43 of them are held by Democrats. So that's a lot more than the percentage of the population of California that is actually Democrat. So they're going to fight fire with fire by doing more of what California has been doing all along. Just to demonstrate, by the way.
You just said that they have an independent commission, which is it. And if an independent commission has led to that being the makeup of the state's partisan affiliation as far as the representatives go, that's the way it is. Why are you pretending like it's undemocratic?
What a sham. The Independent Redistricting Commission is generally in the state of California, because California is indeed fairly highly gerrymandered. Like, if you really think that the representation should literally come down to how it's the constitution of the state as a whole, like if you have 40%, like if 30% are Republicans and 70% are Democrats, he's like, oh yeah, you should see 30% Republican representatives and 70% Democratic representatives. But that 30%, depending on how they're dispersed across the state, could be concentrated or spread out. And if that's the case, it is entirely possible for you to have that be the polling or partisan affiliation when you ask, when you look broadly, the population stats of California, but yet nonetheless, you don't actually see it reflected. The lines have to be drawn somewhere. And if, again, they have an independent voting commission, so that's about as democratic as it gets. Redistricting Commissioner Sarah Sabwani showed up to say that her authority should be taken away from her and they should simply redraw the maps without any independent redistricting authority, which shows how independent she was in the first place. Not that she's a Democratic tool or anything. Here we go.
It just like breaks my brain how hypocritical this is, how insanely and flagrantly, just openly, they're like criticizing California for even just considering doing this, how mad they are that this is going on the ballot. And just completely ignoring what Texas is trying to do, the way that they're doing it, the way they're going, like all of these criticisms applied to Texas Republicans and more. We have more registered Dems or Republicans in Texas, but he won't mention that. No, of course not. Pulls apart the argument. Or he'll say, well, Texas is a different state and those voters are okay with it. Thank you for the follow.
We have witnessed masked gunmen kidnapping our neighbors off the streets, and my understanding is they're outside waiting to do it again. We have seen not just the toleration of political violence, but the encouragement of it on January 6th against nonpartisan election officials and the deployment of the National Guard in our cities, turning our cities into police states. And if that wasn't enough, we are watching executive overreach that no doubt is making our founding fathers turn in their graves.
So she seems like a very independent commissioner. She probably is not a Democrat at all, probably. By the way, her normal day job is that she is a professor of politics specializing in Asian American and Latino voting behavior, elections, interest groups, and representation at Pomona College. So obviously, this is a person with no political priors at all. Now, there is...
That person doesn't exist. You're talking about a dead baby if you're talking about somebody who doesn't have political biases in this world. What are you talking about, dude? Like, she has education... Checkmate libs. She's on this independent commission, but did you know that she actually has formal education and opinions? Got him, dude.
There's a problem for the Democrats in California, and that is that the Californian voters are not particularly interested in doing any of this. According to a new poll by a 2-to-1 margin, voters prefer keeping an independent line-drawing panel to determine the state's House seats. Only 36% of respondents back returning congressional redistricting authority to state lawmakers. Jack Citron, a veteran political science professor at UC Berkeley, said, quote, "It's not surprising in the sense that California has voted twice for this independent review commission not all that long ago. There's a lot of mistrust and cynicism about politicians and the legislature, and that is reflected here." That's according to Politico. So it's a problem for Gavin Newsom. But in essence, does Gavin Newsom actually care about any of this? Of course he does not. Of course.
Just like you. Like, you don't care about any of this. You're just ass mad that Democrats are actually resisting the moves that the Trump administration is requesting of the Texas state legislature and their leading party.
He does not.
Or party leaders.
Wants to take the California Democrats from 43 of 52 possible seats in California to 48 of 52 possible seats in California. Now, that's nothing new. That's nothing special. He was just prevented by the California Constitution from doing it. And if, in fact, the voters stop him, well, he can still say he tried his best, which is the most important thing, because Gavin Newsom is interested in one thing and one thing only, and that is running for president in 2028, which is why he continues to promote the lie that President Trump is going to run for an unconstitutional third term in 2028. Here's Gavin Newsom doing this routine yesterday.
I said it a moment ago, wake up, America, wake up. You will not have a country if he rigs this election. You will have a president who will be running for a third term. Mark my word. I wasn't exaggerating when I said that I received in the mail a Trump 2028 hat from one of his biggest supporters. These guys are not screwing around. The rules do not apply to him. The most corrupt president in history.
Ben Shapiro has literally acknowledged that January 6th was an attempt at overturning democracy, but that you don't need to worry about it because the guardrails held and we still have a country, right? So he's previously acknowledged that, but now we are performatively laughing at a Texas Democrat or at a California Democrat responding to the things that Trump is currently doing and drawing very, very reasonable and rational inferences based off of just off of this alone. You could obviously draw this inference, but that's it, like that's ignoring everything else, which there's no reason to do.
Okay, guys, I think we need to send Gavin Newsom a Trump 2036 hat. Just because obviously, if somebody sent him as a joke a Trump 2028 hat and he took it seriously, let's go further than that. Trump 2040 hat. We need to make one and we need to send it to California Governor Gavin Newsom because the dude cannot take a joke. Or alternatively, he knows full well that's not going to happen and he's scaremongering because he wants to run for president. Okay, well, this culminated yesterday in ICE agents showing up outside Newsom's presser on redistricting. Already coming up, ICE agents showed up outside Gavin Newsom's ridiculous event. Plus, President Trump prepares for a meeting with President Putin, and Isabel Brown sticks around in order for us to talk about Taylor Swift and all the rest. A lot going on. First, data brokers, those invasive.
I debated that Isabel Brown chick, and she said that George Floyd did not die because of a knee on his neck and that he died of a fentanyl overdose because Candace Owens told her. I'm not kidding.
Tech companies, they spy on your online activity, they compromise your freedom, they monitor every click, action, and word, and then they compile and sell this information to.
Why are we doing an ad read, Ben?
How many times have you told somebody, if it ain't broke, don't fix it? Well, that's great advice for most things, but not for your cell phone, because your cell phone just kind of naturally degrades the battery life.
Why are we still on this? Jesus.
According to Mediaite, federal immigration officials detained at least one person outside of Governor Gavin Newsom's speech on Thursday, discussing the Texas push to redistrict its congressional map, according to the local news. Newsom's office posted images of ICE agents outside the event. And then he wrote, "Trump's private army is illegally on private property. We will not be intimidated by this weak little man." 3 exclamation points, all capital letters. Oh, he's so tiresome. He's so unbelievably tiresome. Apparently, U.S. Border Patrol Sector Commander Gregory Bovino spoke to NBC Los Angeles and told them they were, quote, conducting roving immigration enforcement patrols in the area, and one person was taken into custody. The report added that the video filmed in the area should mask U.S. border.
So we're literally just reading like a fucking State Department line and going, LOL, this dude actually disagreeing with the authorities when they give a press release on what they claim to be doing.
Patrol agents taking a man into custody near several federal buildings in the area, one of which includes a detention center. So Gavin Newsom told the crowd, apparently, that it was not a coincidence. He said, Donald Trump's minions, Tom Homan, decided this was the location. They'd advance. Donald Trump, you have poked the bear. We will punch back. Punching bears. That's where we are at this point. Just great. Here is the footage of Border Patrol outside the presser on redistricting.
Border Patrol has arrived just outside of the downtown LA venue where Governor Gavin Newsom was actually holding a press conference today. And it appears that those Border Patrol agents are making arrests, illegal immigrants that I don't know if they were at this press conference, if they were in the area, but this is a very, as John put it when we first saw this video, a very in-your-face way to let, Democrats know that you are going to do your job, that you're going to carry out these Trump policies.
I love how he was undermining the idea that this was partisan in any way, shape, or form, and then playing a Fox News clip where even they admit in their editorialization and commentary that it's obviously a show of force, and explicitly what he just said it was not.
Well, the Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem was on Fox News.
I guess we're just not acknowledging that it completely pulled apart his narrative that he was trying to propagate right before he fucking showed that clip. What?
As this footage was airing, and here's what she had to say about the situation.
Every single one of our ICE and Border Patrol operations is built on information, on investigative work. It's a case and an operation that has been planned because of who they think could be in that area and what they have for information that shows that there are illegal criminals there. Remember, we're focusing on the worst of the worst. So I don't know specific to what information.
This is all lies, of course. The majority of the people that they have picked up have been people that are actually have no violence convictions, no history of that. To the extent that they have any sort of record, it's literally for stuff like speeding, misdemeanors, shit that is just not a big deal. And they have mostly picked up people that are not like just people that are in compliance with the law, showing up to their ICE, is just showing up and interacting with immigration courts as they're supposed to, doing check-ins. They're not going after criminals. That's a lie.
Information that they had for that operation that they planned today, that it was based on the investigative work that all law enforcement officers do for every single operation they conduct to make sure that they're getting dangerous criminals off our streets.
Okay, so apparently this was not enough for Democrats. Democrats, it is amazing. If President Trump came out in favor of getting rid of cancer, if he started some sort of Operation Warp Speed to fight cancer, Democrats would come out in favor of cancer. I have zero doubt about this. It is amazing. They are coming out in favor of crime, illegal immigration, and every other 80-20 issue. They are taking the 20% simply if
Find me the Democrat that's in favor of illegal immigration.
Trump takes the 80% issue, and in the dumbest possible way. So, in what has to amount to the stupidest protest I've ever seen. Yesterday, there was a man whose name is Sean Charles Dunn, who approached law enforcement officers in Washington, D.C. and began yelling obscenities and calling them fascists. And then, if you can't see this video, he is holding a sandwich, and he chucks his sandwich at one of the officers, and then tries to take off down the street. He looks like he's coming straight from his golf game at the local club. He's wearing like a pink polo shirt or pink button down, and then he just chucks his sandwich, and now he takes off down the street with the grace of a gazelle. And the officers start.
Do you think it was a hero sandwich?
Chasing him. He's loping down the sidewalk. By the way, this is not like an urgent run. These people are not fast. I gotta say, training at Border Patrol. We need some track training for Border Patrol. It took them this long to run this guy down. This guy.
I mean, that was utterly pathetic. And when we read about this last night, this literally is exactly what I was picturing. Again, hot dog necked, overweight, Oakley wearing, disgusting idiots that can't even catch up to a guy who's literally like in sandals.
Takes the sandwich, chucks
and
it.
like 2 feet in front of them.
At the Border Patrol agent. Now he's resisting by losing his lunch. He also broke the very first rule of justice.
I actually like cancer. You must be a Democrat.
Smollett, never throw the Subway sandwich. Hold on to that thing for dear life.
Well, what year is it again? We're talking about Jussie Smollett for what reason?
Apparently, it's not just this schmuck who's throwing sandwiches. Maybe it wasn't a very good sandwich. I don't know. There's a lot left of that sandwich. I feel like it's not a good use of food. It's like the food fight from Hook. But anyway, he throws the sandwich at the Border Patrol.
Thank you for the follow.
Agent. It turns out that this guy is a DOJ employee.
Yeah, he's like a paralegal.
So we have Justice Department employees who are now assaulting federal law enforcement with sandwiches. Sandwiches are beautiful. Sandwiches are fine. According to the Washington...
Wait, how do people watch this man? Okay. I want to skip to where he talks to Isabel Brown. I'm actually curious about that. Because she always argues that, like, or she was arguing before that, like, oh, Gen Z is, like, on track to be, like, the most conservative generation ever. But she uses all of these, like, disparate, discrete, like, polls and facts to kind of, like, create this picture, and it just falls apart to me. I don't understand why she has this conclusion from what she has.
The problems with Gen Z is the author of a book about Gen Z, and of course, a Daily Wire host, Isabel Brown. Her book is The End of the Alphabet, which is all about Generation Z and its vicissitudes. Isabel, thanks so much for joining the show. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me back, Ben. So psyched to be here.
So let's start by asking, what the hell is going on with Gen Z's support for Zohran Mamdani? I have my own theories, but I want to hear yours since you're much closer to that generation than I am at this point.
It's a great question. And honestly, I have to think that the media is pushing a very strong narrative about Gen Z being all in on Mamdani for a reason. Newsweek magazine just ran ahead.
So we're literally like 10 seconds in, and her answer is already starting off with like the most conspiratorial angle you could possibly take to this, which is that the media is dishonestly reporting Gen Z's enthusiasm for Zoran Mamdani for a socialist agenda, I suppose. The media, the corporate media, famous advocates and fans of socialism.
Headline that apparently he is the key to recapturing all of the young men that Republicans and conservatives made substantial inroads with for the
2024 girl. She usually doesn't look like such a hippie.
24 election. I don't fully buy that, but I do think there is a with for the 2000 recapturing all of the young men that Republicans and conservatives made substantial inroads with for the 2024 election. I don't fully buy that, but I do think there is a bit of renewed interest in the left because of Mamdani being radically different from the rest of the left-wing political lineup, especially in New York City. If your other options are Cuomo, who've been in political offices as a family for a very, very long time, or Eric Adams, something new with new ideas is somewhat appealing to young people across the board. Now, those new ideas are terrible and are probably going to...
Okay, but so are young people organically interested in these things, or are they just being led around by the corporate media that you just said supports socialism? Because now you're saying that like, oh, well, he's new and shiny, so obviously his support was inevitable because he's a break from the status quo. But you already, again, started off with saying that the media is overstating the extent to which there's enthusiasm for this candidate.
Burn New York City to the ground. But I think it speaks volumes as to what young people are looking for to shake up the status quo and why Donald Trump was so appealing to them to begin with.
Well, one of the things that's sort of fascinating about Gen Z is, of course, this gigantic sex split between girls and boys, men and women in Gen Z. Men are trending, apparently, according to the polls, more Republican, although they seem to be sort of moving back to the mean, regressing to the mean. Women tend to be moving significantly more to the left and very
interesting. I wonder what data he's looked at.
Very quickly to the left. What's going on with Gen Z women?
You know, interestingly, that is the narrative. And typically when you see these graphs go major viral on X or Instagram or YouTube.
Again, she wrote a book. So she already has this idea. She's worked backwards from the conclusion that it's the most conservative generation that's going to save us all. Gen Z, that is. So it doesn't matter what data at any given point says. She has to like sell that narrative. Otherwise, her book means nothing.
I think there is this narrative that young women are overwhelmingly becoming radically more leftist while Gen Z men are becoming extremely conservative. We know that young men are the most conservative generation we've seen in my lifetime. And for the first time, young men...
Okay, what those stats say is that the young men are far more likely to identify themselves as conservative. But when you actually pull them issue by issue, especially when they're younger, they are progressive. They are interested in Medicare for all. They are pro-union. They are interested in family and parental leave for women and men. They are interested in increased minimum wages. They are interested in free college tuition. They are interested in marijuana legalization. Do these sound like conservatives to you? No.
Under 35 are more conservative than the oldest generation that is currently alive for the last several generations, which I think is really fascinating. But people are forgetting to mention that young women are also shifting substantially to the right, just not quite on pace with what we're seeing with young men. From 2020 to...
That's why the Republicans do so well with women, right? Oh, wait.
2024, for example, young women exit polling for women under the age of 35 voting shifted 11 points away from the Democrat Party towards the Republican Party in just one presidential election cycle. And notably, this was during an election where young women were told you are only allowed to vote for the candidate that shares your genitalia and campaigns on the supposed women's right to end.
Citation needed. Kamala Harris made no mention about being a fucking girl boss, how monumental her presidency would be for American history because she would be the first female head of state. None of that was mentioned. To the extent that it was mentioned, it was Donald Trump attempting to bait her into talking about it, and it was her not engaging with it. If anyone doesn't believe me, you can go back and watch her CNN interview alongside Tim Walz with Dana Bash, and they address this very quickly and move on because she doesn't want to get bogged down into it.
The life of your preborn child. So there are substantial inroads that are happening with young women. The media is just refusing to cover that, and it's not happening at the snowball.
The media. So the media, again, let's recap, prioritizes pushing the socialist agenda of Zoran Mamdani upon Gen Z, overstating this. And now they're also refusing to cover the fact that, as you said, Gen Z women are very, very slowly becoming more conservative than their predecessors. Groundbreaking stuff. Why isn't this on the New York Times masthead?
Pace quite as quickly as it is with young men.
Well, Isabel,
Hillary did that shit a lot, though. Yeah, but she said that the reason why people ask voters to vote for Kamala Harris specifically was because that was the pitch that they made, and that just wasn't here. That was just not the narrative this time around.
You follow culture much more closely than I do because, again, I'm old. But when it comes to the culture...
Ben Shapiro pretending like most of his channel is in culture war shit is hilarious, dude. Like, he doesn't fucking queen out every now and then over like musicals and different shit that he wants to cover. Why is this happening? That was weird. Yeah, Barbie. Bill Burr, Mr. Potato Head in thumbnail, Sydney Sweeney, Labubu's with Glenn Beck. Coldplay kiss cam affair humiliates cheating tech CEO. What was that again? Ben?
And it's not happening at the
culture much more closely than I do because, again, I'm old. But when it comes to...
You follow culture much more closely. Okay, Ben. Yeah, Superman...
The
coping and pretending like you're crazy for seeing any politics in that resemble Israel or Russia, Ukraine.
The biggest news of the cultural moment is, of course, Taylor Swift has a new announcement about her new album. I did talk about this very briefly on the show. And by briefly, I mean I spent 27 seconds, I believe, on it because that's how important it is to my life. But apparently it's important to hundreds of millions of people that she has a new album out, something about the story of a showgirl or something. And she announced this on her boyfriend's podcast, Travis Kelce. It is sort of fascinating to watch the evolution of her public image because of Travis Kelce. And I think it does say something kind of vaguely political because, you know,
again, he just pretended like he doesn't follow culture war shit. And now he's talking about, isn't it so interesting, Taylor Swift's public transformation since she started dating Travis Kelce? Dude, what? What are we talking about here?
My rip on Taylor Swift has been that she's now...
He probably he's like a Swiftie right now. He like unironically knows more about Taylor Swift than I do.
35 years old, and she's cosplaying as a 16-year-old girl all the time about her failed relationships and about how everyone has wronged her. And meanwhile, she's a billionaire in what appears to be a relatively healthy relationship. And so I've been rooting for them to get married and have kids, actually. I think it'd be very good for America. We can start the Taylor...
This is literally, I think this is actually rivaling Trump for being gayer than him being, like, constantly tweeting at Robert Pattinson, saying that he needs to drop Kristen Stewart. And also he has like an open invitation to the Miss Universe pageant whenever he wants. He's like talking about how he has like shipped Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce and has been cheerleading for them to get married and have a baby.
Swift baby boom. But what is the story with her and Travis Kelce? Why is this important? What is her new album going to be?
He's like so excited to talk about this. He can't even like contain himself.
Only dedicating 27 seconds there, Ben. I think you actually have quite an accurate read on the cultural impact of this.
Okay, at least she like clocked him.
I am not a diehard Swiftie that would sell my car for tickets to the Eras Tour like many people were going viral for over the last few years. But I like Taylor Swift. I always have growing up. I think the last truly great album was 1989. I was a senior in high school, and gosh, the vibes of that album are just totally unmatched, which allegedly we're going to get similar pop star music in this new album coming out October 3rd, The Life of a Showgirl. But zooming in on this interview and why this is such an interesting cultural moment right now, Taylor Swift has never appeared publicly on a red carpet with one of her boyfriends. She's certainly never done a long form interview, podcasting at all, but certainly with one of her significant others throughout history. And she has a totally different energy about her than what I think she's been pretty famous for over the last 10 years or so, being the kind of cutting edge liberal women leader of whatever we're seeing with this cultural moment. She's done lots of political statements over the past few years on social media and in documentaries.
I mean, she'll do partisan statements. Taylor Swift hasn't said a fucking word about Gaza. I would have heard about it. Even Ariana Grande and like Olivia Rodrigo and other celebrities have fundraised for Palestinians. Taylor Swift, not a fucking peep. Like her team didn't even want her endorsing like a political party, and she did that anyway. She's not gonna make a fucking statement on that. Swift is so mediocre. I do not understand the appeal. As far as like I really don't get it either. The most I'll give her is that I don't actually think she's a very good vocalist. I feel like the majority of the ability is like in the songwriting, but even that is like very, very repetitive.
But she had a very different energy that she was putting out during this podcast episode that came out early.
Also, can we just like back up and like Ben Shapiro trying to throw shade on her for like doing a sexy photo shoot in her like 30s as if it isn't going over like completely well, as if this album isn't going to be huge when she finally releases it. That's like a flex.
This week, by the way, is almost at 15 million views in just over 24 hours, on track to be the most viewed single podcast episode ever of all time. She seems happy and content and relaxed and comfortable in her life for the first time that I've ever noticed, certainly throughout her career as a musician. And I think a lot of that has to do with her relationship dynamic with a pretty masculine man, an NFL player who is constantly talking about sports, has this podcast with his brother that they drink beer on and they talk about sports things all the time. And she's admitting, I never knew anything about this world before I started dating Travis, but now my eyes have been opened and I absolutely love it. And now that the Eras Tour is wrapped up, I spend most of my free time baking sourdough bread in the kitchen and I absolutely love it. It's the best chapter of my life up to this point. I don't know that she's even fully aware of the political
Why are we laughing at the sourdough bread thing? Aren't you shouldn't you be in favor of Zoomer supposed TradCon girls and women LARPing as homemakers on TikTok?
Connotation of what all of these
which includes baking bread, Nero Smith, spending 3 hours making a cookie.
Actually mean that she's leaning more into her femininity. She's very comfortable dating a pretty masculine man compared to the tortured artists of her dating history.
I think she's praising it. I guess she just sounds so shocked. It almost sounded like she thought it was frivolous, but
and that's coming through to inspire other young women to do the same thing. But just like we're seeing JoJo Siwa all of a sudden leave lesbianism behind, or Demi Lovato get married and reunite with the Jonas Brothers to make great music again, I think
it is not crazy for somebody to date a woman and then date a man. I guess this person's never heard of bisexuality.
We're watching Hollywood in general start to heal the same way our culture is.
Yeah, Isabel, it'll be fascinating to see if she can carry her audience, because this has always been a conundrum for pop stars, as they hit their mid-30s, and much of their brand has been built around...
It's so funny how these are the same people that are God, Democrats are so pathetic, having to, all of these, soy liberal beta men needing to insert their politics into Marvel movies and all of the, different media and TV and, late night shows. Every time you turn on the fucking TV past 11 p.m., it's just Trump bad. And now they're counting all of these stupid... completely transient, fleeting, irrelevant pop culture moments as touchstones and important for conservatives winning something.
Sexuality, and it's built around being kind of a single wild girl. And you see that many of these women age out. There's something vaguely pathetic about Madonna still twerking on stage at the age of 7.
Arm is a bitch. You should have known better. I actually like that song. I'm not gonna lie. I didn't even mind her version of it that much. Obviously, the dance is iconic as well.
And even now, watching the sort of hatred for Katy Perry in the public mind because of the way that she's gallivanting around, which is she's aged out of this role and she continues to play that role. It'll be interesting to see if Taylor Swift moves in what is a more traditionalist direction with her personal life, what the ramifications are for her listenership.
What does that mean? A more traditionalist, again, these people think that liberals don't get married, that liberals don't have kids, that liberals don't watch football, that liberals don't drink beer. What are you talking about, dude? These are just standard things that adults do. The only reason why it's been delayed is because of her fucking massive career.
People come along with her on a journey to, say, getting married and motherhood.
I sure hope so, and I'm certainly rooting for that. At least Katy Perry has a backup career as a professional astronaut now, but I don't think Taylor Swift has those same inroads to be going to space all the time. But look, I think Taylor Swift is easily the most influential person impacting culture for young women. The economic downstream impact that we've seen from the Eras Tour is unlike anything we've ever seen from the music industry, and totally redefined live music as we know it. And I certainly think she can impact the choices that young women are making, realizing, I can have a meaningful relationship. I can commit to someone long term. I can be dating just one person in a culture that's telling me I should be embracing polyamory.
It's so funny for them to think that because she's notable for writing songs that are about heartbreak and her past relationships, that she was not going to want to settle down and get married and have kids. The entire reason why she even has heartbreak is obviously to do with the fact that she probably wants those things and cannot find them.
And those are good things. They're solid foundations that I can love and appreciate and want to pass on to the next generation as well. So I'm all for Taylor Swift and her sourdough baking, almost trad wife era, being at home with her boyfriend. She seems incredibly happy.
Didn't she have a talk at Harvard or something like that and got up and started randomly dancing midway through? I have no idea.
And I hope that inspires other young women to do the same thing.
I can't even say if that sounds like Taylor Swift because I just don't follow her enough to know. Every bit of Taylor Swift media and songs that I have consumed, it has never been willingly. It has always been because somebody else has put it on in a car that I'm in, or has put like the concert or a documentary on while I'm in the same room.
It's Isabel Brown. She, of course, is the host of the Isabel Brown Show, which premieres this fall at the Daily Wire. And you can check out her new book, The End of the Alphabet. And thanks for somehow making a conversation about Taylor Swift palatable to me, considering I did, I believe, a 1 hour and 30-minute...
Dude, Ben, no one is buying it. You're like dying to talk about this. You know all of the fucking details, and your channel just betrays where your priorities are at. What the fuck is this Cope trying to pretend like he doesn't like follow this stuff all, like super, super closely because he wants to?
Review of her last album, The Tortured Poets Department, which was pure torture. You have somehow made this palatable. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay. How? You literally just admitted you did an hour and a half review of The Tortured Poets Department. No, you didn't need to do that. You didn't need to do that, Ben. You did not need to queen out that hard. You chose to do that. You're a fucking Swiftie. Just admit it.
Thanks for having me, Ben.
Well, meanwhile, speaking of the culture wars and the left's failure to...
That's amazing. Male cheerleaders. A thing that's like been around for a long time. Jillian Michaels shocks CNN with history. Oh my God. Let's see what he has to say about Jillian being like, only 2% of white people had slaves. Calm down.
And we'd also promote false history in order, presumably, to... We don't need to make people's lives better by actually demanding that they do the...
Jasmine Crockett, Republicans are racist. This was cause for a fucking segment. Her saying this, like, again, milquetoast statement. Even if you don't agree with it, it's not uncommon to hear.
Things that make you healthy and happy. That is the part that's insane. We'd rather just pose. And we'd also promote false history in order, presumably, to...
Why is Ben staring into my soul? It's frozen.
Somehow make that pose, what, more serious? So Jillian Michaels, who has become somewhat conservative. Was a host with the Bill Maher.
Is he holding out on saying that she's just a conservative because she labels herself a centrist or because she's gay? Pick one. What do we think it is?
Podcast network for a bit. Well, she was on CNN yesterday, and she was ripped up and down by the left for making what is a clearly and obviously true point, which is that slavery is not unique to America. Again, one of the aspects of the left in America is this belief that America is uniquely evil, that we live in a uniquely terrible time, capitalism is bad, and all the rest. Well, Jillian Michaels was somehow slavery came up, and she made the perfectly obvious point, which is that white people are not responsible for all slavery on planet Earth. And in fact, white people basically solved slavery on planet Earth as much as it could be solved.
You know, I'm always talking about this, how white people are not given enough credit, actually, for ending the institution that they perpetuated for 400 years. This really is under discussed.
It was white Christian countries that did away with slavery and fought it literally everywhere.
We had slavery far longer than most countries had slavery.
Slavery was legal.
Yeah, no mention of her take. The fact that she's literally the host of Valuetainment, her take. Very disrespectful.
In Arab countries, up until the late 20th century, it is still practiced in many Arab countries today. It is still practiced in parts of Africa today.
Okay, and like he's talking about like to the extent that slavery exists in the UAE, and I'm open to being corrected on this, my understanding is like it's indentured servitude. He's trying to suggest that there's like chattel slavery in Arab countries or whatever. That just doesn't seem to really be the case. In Africa countries, I'm not sure.
Michael's making some of these points. She got ripped up online for this.
So we're now literally reviewing parts of American history and parts of American culture to make
sure. Trump actually owns slaves in Dubai. Like, I wouldn't be surprised, like, if they do business with this, or with these companies that either employ against, and this sweatshop is still, like, if you're working in a sweatshop, that's still different than being indentured servitude, pretty much. But they're cousins to each other. Most American corporations are supportive of the things that he's criticizing. We outsource labor to all of these countries.
Sure, it comports with Dear Leader and what the Maga
Can we address some of those things that are in there? Because have you looked at some of the things that are being reviewed?
Yeah, slavery was a bad thing that was to talk about.
Okay,
like
he's not whitewashing slavery. So
he's not.
He's not. No, okay. He's not. And you cannot tie imperialism and racism and slavery to just one race, which is pretty much what every single exhibit does. But let's talk about the fact that when you look at slavery, let's talk about the fact that
slavery in America was.
Do you realize that only less than 2% of white Americans own slaves?
And we looked into this, and this is a very misleading stat because, yes, according to census data, it's actually less than that. It was like 1.4 or 1.8%. But you are not going to get the entire picture of what chattel slavery in the United States looked like and how long how prevalent it was if you are only analyzing it through this one stat. Because even if you didn't own slaves yourself, that didn't mean that you weren't legally entitled to, as a white person, have dominion over black people who were your slaves, benefit from it. It didn't even talk about the fact that like slaves were passed around from business to household frequently. So there was even more widespread ownership than that piece of information suggests.
You realize that slavery is
the percentage of households? It was like 20% and more. I can't remember what, like, we looked at this last night. Let me see. Because, like, that state is like, or that's that.
No, okay, he's not. And you cannot
Wrong
tie
thing.
imperialism and racism and slavery.
Fact check. Stat grossly misleading about slave ownership in 1860. So they're claiming, like, can you stop basing your hate for an entire race of the actions of a mere 1.6%? One, I'd like to point out that has never stopped the fact that minorities are just that, by definition, literally a small percentage of the population in this country. That has never stopped the right from having a disproportionate amount of hate for them. Whether it be trans people, queer people, black people, women, name any demographic, the percentage is never going to correlate to how much hate they have for them. That's one. But then they'll turn around in this instance and being like, it was only less than 2%. Actually, you need to be thanking white people for being so gracious as to end the thing that they were perpetuating for hundreds of years. So data archived from the census shows, the 1860 census shows 1.6 slightly off, but historians say the bigger issue is that measuring slaveholders as a percent of the total population is misleading because slavery was illegal in most states by that point. Where it was still legal, slavery was far more widespread than the number in the post indicates. They said, you can use stats to demonstrate a lot of things that aren't relevant or true. When you search for context, the context very quickly arrives in terms of what's actually going on. So even though it was legal in 15 of the 33 U.S. states, slaves represented nearly a third of the population in those slave-holding states. Yeah, historians say, though, that the stat is hugely misleading since it both wrongly factors in the entirety of the non-slave owning states and ignores that families owned and had power over slaves, not just one individual adult. So it's like, yeah, it's an incorrect denominator because, like, it wasn't just like you're factoring in like that. You're comparing it to states that wouldn't have any slaves because it was illegal. A more accurate way to portray the extent of slavery would be to note 20% of households in seceding states owned slaves, even though the individual owner was counted as only one person in the household.
Thousands of years old.
White people were
Do you know
the slave
who
owners.
in America first race to try to end slavery? Well, what's controversial?
I'm very surprised. This is an extraordinary exercise in historical revisionism.
I'm really surprised.
Do you realize that,
Jillian, I'm surprised that you're trying to litigate who was the beneficiary of slavery and
I'm
who
not.
was not.
What I'm trying to tell you is that
in the context of American history, what are you saying is incorrect by saying that?
I mean, she was trying to litigate who was the beneficiary of slaves. Literally.
It was white people oppressing black people.
Every single thing is like, oh, no, this is all because white people bad. And that's just not the truth.
I mean, it's like not white people bad, but like white people responsible. White people not intrinsically bad, but I mean, if they did slavery, then those white people bad. Yeah, hot take.
Okay, well, what she is saying there happens to be the case. Okay, that is true. Yes, white slavery, white people holding slaves in America was evil and wrong. And it was also white people in America who abolished slavery in America and expended hundreds of thousands of lives in doing so.
He's like a master at this like two-step that he's doing. You acknowledge that slaves or that white people were the majority of who owned slaves, and then immediately follow it up with, but they also got rid of it. So you have to give them credit. Yeah, cis people were the majority of, who did the oppressing of queer people historically. But you also have to factor in that cis people also gave those people they had been oppressing rights at some point. Both sides.
It was white Americans at the founding who actually were...
Who's better off today, blacks in America or blacks in Africa? I'm not answering your stupid troll question. And if you put blacks in my chat again, you're never going to type in it. So watch it.
Cursors to the British Empire getting rid of slavery. Again, this sort of running down of America is emblematic of a broader attempt to treat America as something uniquely bad. The situation in which we find ourselves is the product of something uniquely evil. And it's depressing and ridiculous, and it makes people insane. And meanwhile...
I wonder how Ben would feel if someone said Germans weren't responsible for the Holocaust because other groups were collaborators. Depending on what conversation that was introduced in, he may be willing to play along with it just to seem consistent, or he might pearl clutch. It would just depend. Because Ben is he's a savvy operator.
Wow. In actual news, the president of the United States is up in Alaska. He is set to have a meeting with Vladimir Putin today. He's brought basically his entire team. Well, the Russians showed up as well.
Okay, no, wait. I don't want to get to this yet before I actually read about what happened there. But okay, I found the Hannity interview on the Fox News website, I believe. I think this is the thing from today. But let's see. Before we get into it, if you're watching on Twitch and you haven't followed me yet, you should go ahead and do so. That way you can catch when I go live, which is basically every single day. You can also subscribe to me, get access to an ad-free experience, and cute emotes or gift subs throughout the chat to other people. Share the love. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe, hit the bell. You'll know when I go live. Like the stream. Really helps push it out to other people. I'm at Straighterade _ on everything. And if you want to support me, my donation links are pinned in my Twitch chat or my YouTube description box. And I will do timestamps for yesterday's VOD. I fucking knew it, that playing that Simpsons clip was going to lead to a copyright strike, but the VOD is so long, or not a strike, it didn't lead to a strike, but like a claim. The VOD is so long though, that it took forever to process, and it didn't actually tell me that I had a copyright notification until I was mostly done with the timestamps. And then after I edited out the segment that had the Simpsons clip and also part of the trailer for Hillary's America, which we watched, ended up being claimed as well, so I had to trim that out. And now that all of the, like almost half of the timestamps that I did are thrown off by like a couple of minutes. So I have to go back and fix it. But I will timestamp this VOD and that one after this, no matter what time. Bro, that was like a 30-second skit. I know, but it like throws up everything. When I saw the pics of you and her, I felt like the knife twist. How do you mean? So quiet.
And welcome to Hannity. And tonight
I'm so happy I found this extension that helps me boost the volume of whatever I want.
We are back at Joint Base Elmendorf, Richardson, and we are in beautiful Anchorage, Alaska, and the historic summit between President Donald Trump and President from Russia, Vladimir Putin, is now.
That was me COing out. No, why is this happening?
And welcome to Hannity. And tonight we are back at Joint Base Elmendorf, Richardson, and we are in beautiful Anchorage, Alaska.
This is literally as loud as it goes. Why is it so quiet?
Historic summit between President Donald Trump and President from Russia, Vladimir Putin, is now in the books, but not before Vladimir got an up-close look at the power, the sophistication, the strength, the might of the U.S. military with this incredible, perfectly timed flyover featuring a B-2 stealth bomber and 4 F-35 stealth fighters. Now, following that epic show of force, both leaders met for roughly 3 hours. What happened? How did the meeting go? And what's next for Russia and Ukraine? Joining us now for his very first post-summit interview, the president of our
Russia and Ukraine, the war that Trump said he would end on day one.
great country.
Oh my God, I'm gonna hate this player, aren't I?
Sir, how are you?
Thank you very much.
We're glad you could be here.
Thank you.
So you said before the interview, you said in 2 minutes, I will know. I watched very closely when you met him on the red carpet after both your planes landed. What vibe did you get in 2 minutes?
Well, you know, I always had a great relationship with President Putin, and we would have done great things together in terms of, you know, their land is incredible. The rare earth, the oil, gas, everything, it's incredible.
Nobody took the day one thing literally. Oh, so they just voted for a guy that was joking around about ending a conflict that had been raging on for a couple of years? That was just supposed to be like a little jokey joke or what?
Incredible. It's the largest piece of land in the world as a nation by far. I think they have 11 time zones, if you can believe it. That's big stuff. But we would have done a lot of great things, but we had the Russia hoax, which stopped us from doing that. We would have done so great, but we
would have done so great if it weren't for the Russia hoax. Okay, so what you're saying is, so you are admitting that there was Russian interference in our election, but the hoax is that it was but according to his State Department, or like his own intelligence, right? Tulsi Gabbard says that Obama is responsible for it. So what?
We had one of the great hoaxes. I mean, there were others, like the election itself, as you know, as you covered better than anyone. But
the election itself,
a horrible thing that took place in 2020. But we would have had a great relationship. But we did amazingly well, considering, you know, he would look and see what happened. He would think we're crazy, you know, with the made-up Russia hoax. So we had something very important, and we had a very good meeting today, but we'll see. I mean, it's, you know, you have to get a deal. We agreed on a lot of points. I want to see people stop dying in Ukraine, and that's what's happening. We're losing 5, 6, 7,000. They're Russians, mostly Russians, and they're Ukrainian soldiers. There's some people dying in cities and towns where they're trying to blow up missile manufacturers and other things in some cities. I don't know if you know what's going on there, but there are a lot of people dying.
He's like, troops on both sides really have died in this war that we don't, I guess, can't really say who started it.
And if we can end that war, it would be very good. And I was very happy to hear him say, if I was president, that war would have never happened.
Mr. President, that was my next question. He said at the joint press conference that if, and you have said this many, many times, and he confirmed for the world today, that if you were president, this wouldn't have happened.
So now we can take Vladimir Putin at his word. So because he says at a press conference, at a summit, that, oh, if it, you know, I wouldn't have fucking invaded if you'd been in charge. Case closed, I guess.
Any of the specifics come up as to why he said that?
It did. It doesn't matter at this point, but that this war should never have happened. You know, a lot of wars should never have happened. There was stupid things go
He's
down.
He's a pacifist.
The wrong people are talking, but Biden was a terrible president in so many ways. He should have never let it happen, and it did. There are millions of people.
Biden did this. We can't really say for sure if Putin did or didn't do it. But what we can say with certainty is that Biden is responsible for Russia invading. Personally,
killed. I mean, it's the worst thing since I see everyone saying worst since World War II by far. There's nothing even close. But we had a very good meeting today, and I think a lot of points were negotiated on behalf of Ukraine and on behalf of the whole NATO situation, where we're dealing very well with a lot of foreign countries that are great.
Like, they're praising him, even though didn't Trump himself say, like, we didn't get there, like, we didn't actually broker anything at the summit.
European countries. Look, as far as I'm concerned, there's no deal until there's a deal, but we did make a lot of progress.
The meeting took place in this room.
Yeah.
This is where you met, right in this room.
Well, let me examine it. Oh, there it is.
That's what you were saying.
That's it. I would say that's it. Yep.
So did you have alone time with him?
Yeah, I did. I did actually after our speeches. He made a very good speech, and I also finished it up. And afterwards, we spoke. Right after that, we spoke very sincerely. I think he wants to see it done.
Yeah. In your press conference, you
I can't. That's what when I press the space bar, it's gonna make it like not full screen anymore. But it will do that, I guess.
You agreed on, and maybe one big issue you don't agree on. Are you prepared to go public with that?
No, I'd rather not. I guess somebody's going to go public with it. They'll figure it out. But no, I don't want to do that. I want to see if we can get it done. You know, it's not a done deal at all. Mm-hmm. And Ukraine has to agree. I mean, President Zelensky has to agree. But it's a terrible war where he's losing a lot, and both of them are. And hopefully it can get completed. That'll be a great achievement for them. Forget about me, for them. And you'll save 7,000 lives a week. That's a lot.
I spoke very briefly to Secretary of State.
So weird.
And he did say to me, he goes, there's a difference.
Future Nobel Peace Prize recipient, potentially, going like 7,000 people a week being saved. Not bad. Am I right? Just saying it so nonchalantly.
When you're in the same room together than versus, talking to each other through the press.
Even through the phone.
Even through the phone.
It's not the same thing. When you're on a telephone, it's not the same thing either. This was, we were together almost 3 hours, and it was very extensive. And we agreed on a lot of points. I mean, a lot of points we agreed on. Mm-hmm. But there's not that much. There's, one or two pretty significant items, but I think they can be reached. Now it's really up to President Zelensky to get it done. And I would also say the European nations, they have to get involved a little bit. But it's up to President Zelensky. I think we are, and if they'd like, I'll be at that next meeting. They're going to set up a meeting now between President Zelensky and President Putin. And myself, I guess. I didn't ask you about it. Not that I want to be there, but I want to make sure it gets done. And we have a pretty good chance of getting it done.
If you had to grade it on a scale of 1 to 10?
So I think the meeting was a 10 in the sense that we got along great, and it's good when two big powers get along, especially when they're nuclear powers. We're number one.
It was a 10 as far as like the banter goes. The actual purpose of the summit, to try to reach an agreement, to talk about like ceasefire negotiations and an end to this war. That part not so much.
They're number 2 in the world, and it's a big deal. That's a big deal. You never want to even mention that word, the word nuclear. But we have a tremendous
normal size cup today. Yeah, because I didn't wash the other one yet.
Nuclear. I rebuilt it when I was president, first term, and I hated to rebuild it. It was the one thing I hated to rebuild, but we had to. And we have the greatest nuclear force. We have the greatest military in the world, actually. and they have a big nuclear presence also.
No, you got to respect it. You
always have to respect it. You never want to use it. If you use that, it could be the end of the world. That's the kind of power we're talking about.
Let's talk about
profound. Making the observation that yes, if you engage in nuclear warfare, it could potentially lead to a world war and the end of everything. Thanks, Trump. Thanks, Donnie.
The table. I would argue that there are 4 things in my mind. If you think there are more or you don't think they were a factor, you did the trade deal with the European Union. And in that deal, you got nearly $1 trillion in commitments to purchase American oil. That's money that would otherwise be funding Putin's war machine. That's number one. India, 50% tariffs if they import Russian oil. You also, Vladimir Putin was moving at a speed you were comfortable with. So you said you would, unlike Biden, you wouldn't give weapons to Ukraine. You would sell weapons to Ukraine. The last thing, and I don't think it could be underestimated, is NATO is now paying twice what they were paying, and those countries that weren't paying their fair share are. Were those the 4 factors that brought?
Okay, is that true? Are NATO countries now paying more under Trump? Or if I just do like Sean Hannity, Trump interview fact check. Oh, and nobody's gotten on this yet. According to, let's see, Europe placates Trump with NATO pledges it can ill afford. June 25th, 2025. In the rush to retain Donald Trump's support for NATO, the alliance's European members have promised to more than double the amount of wealth they set aside for military spending. So in summary, new 5% spending target seem unrealistic for most. Leeway exists in how to define defense spend, but some cuts will need to be made elsewhere. The snag is that most can ill afford to spend 5% of output on defense, so while there will be some unpalatable sacrifices in national budgets, there will also be some creative accounting to divert existing spending to the effort. So nominally it's been raised, but as far as actual compliance, maybe, maybe not. It's like pledges right now. Most members will find it hard to keep the pledges. To hit the 5% threshold, European Union countries whose debt pile already tops 80% of output would between them have to nearly triple the 325 billion euros or $377 billion they spent on defense last year to more than 900 billion. Now, non-EU Britain, whose debt is 100% of output and which already pays more in debt servicing than for every spending item apart from health, would need an extra 30 billion pounds or $41 billion. Is this color shaded map that you're talking about? Olo smooth Olo in chat. And then this New Yorker one. How Donald Trump got NATO to pay up. The administration is strong-arming European nations to do more on behalf of their own defense. Is a strategy working? Oh, I always forget this people. Why did I think I'd at least get like one free one? Let's see. These types of things are always like very, very like, it's almost like a narrative. In 2022, after the Russian invasion of Ukraine, NATO formally identified Russia as the most significant and direct threat to allies, security, and to peace and stability in the Euro-Atlantic area. In response, its members pledged hundreds of billions of dollars in additional defense spending and deployed tens of thousands of troops to what the alliance called its eastern flank, countries near Russia's borders. The U.S. alone moved 20,000 additional soldiers to Europe, but Trump has often expressed a more complicated view of Russian aggression, at times even seeming to treat the Russian president, Vladimir Putin, more as a potential partner than as a threat. On the campaign trail last year, he suggested that if a NATO ally underspent on defense, the U.S. would not provide military support in the case of a Russian attack. I would encourage them to do whatever the hell they want, he said of Russia. You don't pay your bills, you get no protection. It's very simple. Could you imagine if he had this approach towards Israel? I can't either, because that's never going to happen. Since returning to the presidency, Trump has sought to dramatically rewrite the terms of America's commitment to European security. He is now pushing for member states to spend 5% of their GDP on defense. In February, during a visit to NATO, his Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, said that European leaders, quote, should take primary responsibility for defense of the continent. What are we learning about? If we are verifying whether or not Trump's actually pressuring European countries, a part of NATO, to actually pay their fair share, quote unquote, or if this is just a bunch of symbolic pledges, but then they're not actually going to cough it up. This spring, NBC News reported that the Trump admin was preparing to move a sizable portion of American forces stationed in Europe to Asia and other regions, and that it might not fill the position of Supreme Allied Commander Europe or SACEUR, NATO's top military position, which has been held by an American since the founding of the alliance. Talking about different people that have inhabited it. The president, he went on, is merely saying something that Root himself has often told NATO's member states. If we want to stay safe from threats and adversaries like Putin or China, North Korea, or Iran, then we have to spend more. The pressure from Washington is an opportunity for NATO members to build the defense capabilities they've neglected for decades. There is a realization in Europe that we have to have some shift of the burden between what the U.S. is doing and what Europeans can do more of themselves. So in late June, presided over a summit of NATO leaders in The Hague. This is where they made those pledges that we just read about in Reuters. More history, more history, more history. Collapse of the Soviet Union. NATO summits in 2008, 2014. According to NATO's estimates, in 2016, the U.S. defense budget accounted for 72% of total military expenditures among all NATO allies. On the campaign trail, Trump was arguing that in the post-Cold War era, NATO had become obsolete. Big statement to make when you don't know that much about it, he said, but I learned quickly. Most of his criticisms were about money. He told the Times that if the U.S. was not reasonably reimbursed for the tremendous cost of protecting these massive nations with tremendous wealth, he would tell NATO allies. I mean, it's like... The reason, like the U.S. has discouraged the European Union from building up their military forces in favor of NATO, but then you have one American president come in and want to upend decades of foreign policy, or decades of precedent on this issue or whatever, and that's what it ends up. He's like, they have all this money, how come they don't take care of it themselves? And it's like, wait till I tell you who discouraged them from doing that. He thinks it's a protection racket or treats it as such. He's not actually an adversary to NATO in the way that people think. I've always felt that that's a little bit of a misnomer. He talks a lot like a big game, and he makes these kind of outlandish statements because they are out of the bipartisan foreign policy consensus that exists to support and defend NATO in this country. But you have to remember that under Trump's first term, North Macedonia and Montenegro were incorporated into NATO. That wouldn't have happened if Trump was really, really anti-NATO. There was literally NATO expansion under his tenure. So all of this talk or whatever, to me, it's like lip service, but I don't really feel like he's meaningfully trying to dismantle it. It's totally just pay your fair share and then it can stick around. Congratulations, you'll be defending yourself. In April 2017, 3 months into Trump's presidency, he hosted Stoltenberg at the White House. Stoltenberg told him, "We are already seeing the effect of your strong focus on the importance of burden sharing in the alliance." Trump then said of NATO, "It's no longer obsolete." So flip-flop it immediately. He also thinks that defense spending should be directed to U.S. weapons, which is not what's happening. Yeah. The following year at the NATO summit in Brussels, Trump joined the assembled heads of state for breakfast, where he called out Germany's gas trade with Russia. It's so funny that they have this, they talk about this over pancakes. It certainly doesn't seem to make sense that they paid billions of dollars to Russia, and now we have to defend them against Russia, he said. He widened his critique to the rest of Europe, saying they're delinquent as far as I'm concerned. He wants his money. The next morning, during a meeting with his top foreign policy officials, Trump asked Bolton, his national security advisor, "Are you ready to do something historic?" God, could you imagine being in Trump's cabinet and he says this shit to you? It's like, what are we talking about? What did we hear Fox and friends suggest today that you want to do? When I spoke with Bolton recently, he told me, "I just knew this was going to be bad." Even the toadies are like, yeah, no, I wasn't going to be a fan of this. Later in the meeting, Trump declared, "We're out." That afternoon, before a session devoted to the prospective membership of Georgia and Ukraine, Bolton implored Trump, go up to the line but don't cross it. At the session, Trump launched into another critique of European underinvestment in defense and said that the U.S. was ready to go our own way. Bolton told me, quote, if I was a Catholic, I would have been doing my rosary. Sorry, it's almost 3 a.m. Doing my rosemary. Seemingly out of the blue, Trump declared that the 2% spending target should be raised to 4%. Stoltenberg cleared the room, instructing only heads of state, ambassadors, and a handful of advisors to remain. It was very important that the summit didn't end in chaos, he told me. You don't really need conspiracy theories to explain Trump's behavior. He's just dumb and easily influenced. He's scared of Putin as a leader, and he looks up to him as a strongman. Yeah, for sure. They're like working overtime pending these in-depth explanations or whatever, talking to the people around him when they're clearly just at the mercy of his whims, which could go in any direction depending on what he's consumed, how he's feeling, how much sleep he's had or hasn't had, what he watched on TV that morning or what he saw on social media. They wanted to pacify Trump. For many NATO countries, the election of Biden as president represented a return to a calmer, more predictable relationship with the U.S. At the 2020 NATO summit in Brussels, Biden referred to Article 5 as a sacred commitment and spoke like Trump of the 9/11 attacks, only this time he completed the thought. NATO stepped up and they honored Article 5, he said, and I just want all of Europe to know the United States is there. Then February 2022, a little more than a year into Biden's presidency, Russia launched its full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Suddenly, NATO was faced with an actual land war in Europe. Individual member states dispatched military aid to Ukraine, an effort coordinated by the U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin. A NATO official close to Root told me that the Biden admin resisted quite robustly the notion of other alliance members playing such a coordinating role. NATO members, including the UK, France, and Germany, increased the number of troops they had based in Eastern Europe, but the total number was still less than 20,000 soldiers that the U.S. sent, mostly to bases in Poland and Romania. The deployments marked what a senior NATO official called a fundamental shift away from an organization designed for regional security missions, sending small numbers of troops to do stabilization operations with logistics and intelligence provided by the U.S. to one dedicated to collective defense. You're defending your own homeland, your own territory, the senior official said, and is that much more intense when you're potentially going to have to deal with a nuclear-armed peer opponent. Part of America's outsized influence in NATO stems from what are known as strategic enablers, such as intelligence gathering and surveillance, targeting for long-range strikes, and air transport and air-to-air refueling. It's not a question of whether or not you have enough bullets or tanks, Julianne Smith said. A former U.S. ambassador to NATO told me, the enablers are the big systems that will allow you to use those types of weapons. According to NATO's defense planning principles, no one ally should provide more than 50% of any given capability. But Rachel L. Huss, a Pentagon representative to NATO during the Biden presidency, told me that the rule was regularly broken, with the U.S. providing, for example, the majority of heavy air transport and ground-based air defense systems. The thinking, she said, was we'd rather you invest your limited defense dollars in something like fighter aircrafts. At times, the alliance has revealed vulnerabilities. In 2022, after Russia's invasion, France prepared to move several hundred troops to Romania, but its military planners needed the U.S. to provide transport. The episode was deeply troubling, Smith said. It's not like we were asking them to deploy to the South China Sea. Let's see. Less than a month into Trump's second term, Hegseth, the Secretary of Defense, visited NATO headquarters and told the other members that Europe needed to take charge of its own security. Values are important, he said, but you can't shoot values, you can't shoot flags, and you can't shoot power. You can't shoot strong speeches. There is no replacement for hard power. Trump, he continued, will not allow anyone to turn Uncle Sam into Uncle Sucker. A Pentagon official said that John Healey, the British Defense Secretary, had seen a copy of Hegseth's speech in advance. He thought it would blindside a lot of folks. The Pentagon official said he asked to tone it down. A Pentagon spokesperson said Secretary Hegseth did not soften his planned remarks, nor was he asked to soften his planned remarks. Okay. NATO ambassadors may have been alarmed by Hegseth's language, but few were surprised by its central message. It basically fit with what we thought would come one day, the European diplomat said, that the U.S. decides it cannot do everything everywhere. Well, not just the U.S., I mean like Trump specifically, right? When I asked Root about Hegseth's speech, he brought up the acclaimed pianist Arthur Rubinstein. You know what Rubinstein said? If I go on stage and I'm totally terrified, I cannot play. But if I go on stage and I don't have a little bit higher anxiety than when I was sitting at the dinner table, I will not be at my best. Root went on. So there's always a reason for us to all have a slightly elevated heartbeat. It's an interesting way of looking at that. Uncle Sucker has a really creepy vibe to it. It's also just like off-putting to hear. Vance appears. Someone's arrested. They make their pledges. Rasmussen, the former NATO Secretary General, acknowledged that European defense was entering a new era which came with certain discomforts, but he welcomed the change. For too long, we've relied on an old model that doesn't work anymore, he said, namely a combination of cheap Russian energy, cheap goods from China, and cheap security from the U.S. in Europe. In Europe, he added, Trump's election as president has been considered a bigger threat to our security than Putin's invasion of Ukraine. That's embarrassing. I mean, not wrong. The Russian army has suffered an estimated 1 million casualties since the invasion of Ukraine, and yet, because of the Kremlin's accelerated conscription drive and re-entering of the economy on the defense industry, it is now 15% larger than what it was at the start of the war. Root often notes that Russia produces more ammunition in 3 months than the whole of NATO does in a year. Estimates vary for how quickly Russia could ready its forces to mount a challenge to NATO. Root has spoken of a time horizon of 5 years, though much depends on the scale of the attack. This spring, Eichelheim, the Dutch chief of defense, said at the conference in Estonia that once the current phase of the war in Ukraine ends, Russia will be capable of giving us a dilemma within a year. Putin's ambitions aren't necessarily dependent on military capability. The goal of weakening NATO is key, a high-ranking European intelligence officer told me. If Putin makes the decision to pursue that militarily, they don't need much regeneration time. The capabilities are basically there. But the intelligence officer explained Putin would likely try a host of other measures, political influence, sabotage, before turning to raw military force. We assess war as the last option. In June, Bruno Kahl, the head of Germany's Foreign Intelligence Service, told an interviewer, there are people in Moscow who no longer believe that NATO's Article 5 works. They would like to test it. Kahl continued, they don't need to send tanks for that. They just have to send little green men to Estonia. Talking about Lithuanian attacks, how likely they are. Estonia. In March, when Root visited the White House, Trump greeted him warmly. It's great to be with a friend of mine, Trump said, adding that Root was doing a fantastic job as Secretary General. Root praised Trump for his efforts to broker a ceasefire in Ukraine. You broke the deadlock, he said. I really want to commend you for this. The sage like shit. He mentioned the upcoming NATO summit in The Hague, saying, I'd love to host you there in the summer and work together to make sure that it will be a splash, a real success, projecting American power on the world stage. Since the election, Trump has repeatedly stated his desire for the U.S. to annex Greenland, a territory of Denmark. I think it will happen, he told a journalist during Root's visit. I'm sitting with a man that can be very instrumental. He added, pointing to Root, we will be talking to you. Root appeared unruffled at the suggestion that he might help one NATO member annex the territory of another. When it comes to Greenland, he said, unfurling a tight smile, yes or no, joining the U.S., I would leave that outside this discussion because I don't want to drag NATO into that. But he added Trump was totally right that when it came to his concerns about security in the Arctic and the need to address Chinese and Russian activity in the region. When I asked Root about the exchange, he said, if I want to be effective in some discussions, it's better for me to stay quiet when the cameras are rolling. So you're like terrified of him. Which we knew, but you as the Secretary General of NATO can't even bring yourself to openly disagree with an American head of state that is flirting with the idea of annexing a territory of a sovereign nation. So he agrees with Trump that Europe should be more self-reliant in matters of defense. It's not simply that Trump became president and all of a sudden people woke up, he said. Root brought up the U.S. airstrikes in Yemen in March, a response to a sustained campaign of attacks by Houthi rebels on international shipping vessels in the Red Sea. Jeffrey Goldberg, the editor of The Atlantic, was accidentally added to a Signal group chat of Trump admin officials. It's insane that this happened and how quickly we moved on from this. Who were coordinating the strikes. He later published screenshots of the conversation. I just hate bailing out Europe again, Vance wrote in one message. Hegseth replied, I fully share your loathing of European freeloading. It's pathetic, he says in all caps. This is insane. In the meantime, most European governments have embraced the fact that they will have to spend more on defense. 22 NATO members now meet the 2% target compared with just 8 in 2021. Poland is expected to spend 4.7% of its GDP on defense this year. The countries closest to Russia tend to spend the most on defense, rendering Trump's repeated claim that he will assist only those NATO members who meet the alliance's spending pledges functionally moot. Wow. Spain, with the lowest spending in all of NATO at 1.24% of its GDP, has indicated that it will hit the 2% threshold this year after previously promising to do so by 2029. Even Iceland has formed a parliamentary committee to revamp the country's defense policy. Last year, Russia spent an estimated 7% of its GDP on defense. That signal chat was unforgivable, and their response was ridiculous. Yeah. I mean, like, I think that the thing that sticks out to me the most is they probably, like, got, made Tulsi Gabbard squirm, but then it was in the news for, like, a week, and then that was it. Let's see. In June, I talked to Whitaker about his mission in Brussels. For the past 27 years, he said NATO's other members have oftentimes relied on the U.S. to pay for European security. Trump wanted to equalize that relationship and sent me over here to do that. This was not an ultimatum, Whitaker said. We're just pointing out that some countries are still underspending based on their commitments from 11 years ago, and we have to be honest with people. We have to say this is no longer acceptable. He spoke of Russia's hot war in Ukraine and America's 100-year competition with China. This is not a time to be comfortable. He sounded like a champion of NATO rather than a critic. His boss feels the same way, he said. NATO is going exactly in the direction that President Trump would like. It was even more dumb that reporter didn't stay in the chat for longer. It's fucking Jeffrey Goldberg of The Atlantic, so no surprise there.
Brought him into this room today?
Well, NATO is now paying 5% as opposed to 2%, and they're paying it. And, you know, look, it's headed by, as you know Mark very well. It's
again, like, nominally, these are the pledges and agreements, but we're not getting these sorts of, like, payments just yet.
I had great people. The leaders, I got to know them very well about 6 weeks ago. And great relationship with NATO, European nations basically, but a great relationship. I don't want to say anything brought him to, he's a very smart guy. Nothing brought him to the table, so to speak. I think that he respects our country now. He didn't respect it under Biden, I can tell you that. He had no respect for it. I was so happy when he said this would have never happened. All those lives would be saved if we had a competent president. Those lives would have been saved. It's so sad. You know, I've negotiated 5 wars to their end. And wars that were tough.
Including one that I started and then ended and then patted myself on the back for doing.
Yeah, I have 7.
So brave.
India, Pakistan, Israel, Iran in 12 days, Rwanda, the Congo, Serbia, Kosovo, Cambodia, Thailand, Azerbaijan, Armenia, Egypt, Cambodia.
Okay, that Azerbaijan-Armenia thing, we are locked into a 99-year deal that, one, undermines Armenian, or at least throws into question Armenian sovereignty, and it could completely be undermined or reversed depending on what the next U.S. head of state decides to do with that, for one. It doesn't address refugees. Like, there's so many oversimplifications of you've ended or you've brokered negotiations to end all of these world conflicts or whatever. It's not true, overstated, and if anything, we're being further entrenched in all of these conflicts, even though he's Mr. Isolationist, according to his base. It's like, it couldn't be further from the truth, the way that he goes about doing this shit.
You played a role in all of those, did you not?
I did. I didn't want to include the decimation of the nuclear arsenal because I don't consider it necessarily, conclusive. But we did something amazing because for 22 years, no president was willing to do it. We decimated the nuclear capability, potential nuclear capability, which I think would have taken place.
No, we didn't. And CNN reported on leaked intelligence from his own State Department. From his own administration, and he's now suing them for doing so, even though people in his cabinet can't reject it because it's our own findings. We did not completely obliterate Iran's nuclear program. They either went further underground or they moved it because they had enough warning in advance to know.
Within a month of Iran. And that was a big thing.
I have to go back. This is too historic and deep and profound. At a press conference, the president of Russia stated something that you had stated.
Nothing ever happens. I mean,
your political opponents might have dismissed, but he said this war would not have taken place if you were president. Now, he did give you behind the scenes specific reasons why it happened under Biden.
Again, like the way that they selectively pick and choose what a head of state, like when they take a head of state at their word, Putin especially, bizarre.
He did give you reasons.
Yeah, he did, but I know the
Like if he had said like, oh, under Biden, or like for whatever reason, let's say if he was like, oh, I wouldn't, there's a reason why I didn't do this under Obama, or I wouldn't do this under a future Democratic president. It's so fucking stupid.
reason. It's a gross incompetence. I mean, we have a border that's totally closed now, and people come in, but they come in legally. But we had zero, as you know. The first time you heard it was 3 months ago, but we've done it now 3 times in a row. 0 people coming in illegally. We have many things that are going well now. Our economy
It's not true that, did he really just claim that like nobody has come into the country illegally since he's become the president? What?
The price of energy is down. The price of groceries are down. The price of everything is down. People are happy. We're saving Social Security. You saw that the other day where we have a genius in charge. I took him out of J.P. Morgan Chase. He was the head of, one of the top people in there, and he did great. He went to one of the big funds. One of the top people. They take a cut. I think he said he's working for 1% of what he was working for. These are unbelievable people. And the job he's done in Social Security and making it really powerful and strong is amazing. And we've done that with many things. I love doing
making Social Security strong in a post Big Beautiful Bill world. Okay.
I love seeing this country be great again. And Vladimir said just a little while ago, he said, I've never seen anybody do so much so fast. He said, your country is like hot as a pistol. And a year ago, he thought it was dead. Everybody thought it was dead.
Prices are not down. I mean, he's saying here, oh, yeah, we brought down grocery prices, even though Trump is like, it's hard to bring down grocery prices. Yeah, this was after he was like, while he was president-elect. Trump says it'll be hard to bring down grocery prices, pins hopes on lower energy costs and better supply chains. But let's be fair and balanced, because that was before he had actually been elected. Are grocery prices rising? This is USDA.gov. Food price outlook summary findings, July 25th, 2025. Food at home prices are predicted to increase 1.6% with a prediction interval of minus 6.5 to 10.5%. And food away from home prices, let's see. Let's see. I said away for, okay. Food at home prices, predicted to increase 1.6%. And food away from home prices are predicted to increase 3.1% with a prediction interval of 0.0 to 6.2%. So, no, I don't think they're down, actually. I think it's the opposite of that. I think they are up.
Ed, let me ask you this. We mentioned, to whatever degree...
Prices on some things are down. Don't you just love YouTube chat with the genius chatters that I have?
History will judge your involvement in the 7 conflicts we mentioned, and this conflict in particular. However they will end up judging you. I don't think any other world leader would have been able to set up this meeting today. You're expending a lot of political...
This meeting where Trump left empty-handed.
Capital. I've watched a lot of leaders. I've been doing this since 1987 when I started my radio career. It's a long time. And I've seen a lot of presidents come and go, a lot of world leaders come and go. And you're willing to expend political capital. All of the conflicts that I mentioned, including this one, this does not impact the United States as much as it does our allies in Europe.
It's true.
Wait, what political capital is he expending? He has consistently always had like 90% approval ratings within, among Republicans, which is all that matters to him. And all he gets is praise because it's like, wow, they're having a summit. They're doing a thing. They're in Alaska. They're shaking hands. They're talking. They're getting deals done. All you get is praise. There's no downside to this. Not all YouTube chatters actually. Not all.
The Middle East, when we get involved in the Middle East, but you're doing it anyway. Now, why? Is it to save lives? Do you want to save a world?
Yeah, number one, to save lives in all cases, because wars are wars. When you see what would have happened with Cambodia as an example. Now, I'm not involved, but I was involved in negotiating.
I'm so glad it wasn't a one-on-one meeting. Thank God Rubio was there. What a horrifying sentence that you are when you have to. Then you're relying on like Rubio to be the voice of reason in the conversation.
A trade deal, and I said, you guys are going to be fighting Thailand, Cambodia, so many different. Look at India. Take a look at India and Pakistan. They were shooting down airplanes already, and that would have been maybe nuclear. I would have said it was going to go nuclear, and I was able to get it done. Number one is lives. And number two is everything else.
Little Marco is our last hope.
And if you can avoid them, and I seem to have an ability to end them, to get people together. I use the power of the United States. We have got the greatest economy now in the world. We have trillions, not billions, trillions of dollars or millions. We have trillions of dollars.
Trillions or millions.
I'm getting calls from people in government saying, where did I get the $29 billion from? I said, why don't you try the tariff shelf? And, you know, we have, as an example, the European nations.
Is he talking about these NATO countries? Like, how are we supposed to, like, radically increase, like, a portion of our GDP being devoted to, like, spending on NATO spending and defense spending this quickly? And he's literally saying, life hack tariffs. Hello. Duh.
Deal. They pay us literally trillions of dollars. Japan, so many
developed countries hate this one trick.
They respect us. They didn't respect us. They were paying us nothing.
I guess I should say developing countries.
They weren't paying us. And I turned it around, and we're actually a very rich country now. You know, I told you my favorite word is the word tariff. I actually made that a little bit later because I got criticized by the fake news. You know, they said, what about religion? What about family?
Well, how many countries now have you made trade deals with, and how much is it incoming?
Many of them, and well, basically all of them, because I made, along with some great people, as you know them very well, they're on your show, but I made, I would say 12 or 13 of the big ones. In other words, we made the big deals, and the rest we just assign a tariff to. And we do that by gut instinct. We do that by how we're doing generally, the relationship, and we do it also by deficits. If we're losing a lot of money with a country, you got to pay us a tariff. We got to make it even. We want to balance it out.
Hold on.
We do 13 of the big ones. In other words, along with some great people, as you know them very well. They're on your show. But
what did you just say about the deficit? Deficit's only.
I made. I would say 12 or 13 of the big ones. In other words, we made the big deals, and the rest we just assign a tariff to. And we do that by gut instinct. We do that by how we're doing.
Oh my God. We do that by gut instinct. Okay, so he's literally just admitting that the tariffs were done on a completely vibes-based thing. Like, we knew this, but to hear him actually just say it that openly.
If we're losing a lot of money.
I mean, it's been a minute since I've been shocked by anything that Trump has said, but that is actually kind of stunning.
The country.
Like, one more time.
Gut instinct. We do that. I'd say 12 or 13 of the big ones. In other words, we made the big deals, and the rest we just assign a tariff to. And we do that by gut instinct. We do that by.
We do that by gut instinct. Okay.
Relationship, and we do it also by deficits. If we're
vibes tariffing.
The country, you got to pay us a tariff. We got to make it even. We want to balance it out. And I was generous to a lot. Some of them we lose so much money that frankly, you'll never make it up. And if there are people... Again,
the idea that these quote-unquote lopsided trade agreements that we had with developing countries where we clearly benefit far more than they do in these arrangements, even if by, again, some nominal percentage or whatever, like, it seems like we wouldn't yield as much benefit, just, like, purely looking at the numbers, it couldn't be further from the fucking truth.
That have been great to us as a country, then I take it a little bit easy. But for years, we've been a laughingstock all over the world, the way they took advantage of us. Now, in my first term, I did it, but we got hit with COVID. We had the greatest economy in the history of our country in my first term. But
and again, I guess Hannity is not going to bring up the fact that the big, beautiful bill is like estimating to add like $3.5 trillion to the debt, to the federal budget deficit in less than 10 years.
Called COVID. You may have heard of it. And it decimated the world, the whole world. And we did a phenomenal job, Operation Warp Speed. A lot of people say it was one of the most incredible things they've ever seen.
Thing he can't even brag about because his base is so anti-vax that it's the one time they will buck him outside of his waffling on Jeffrey Epstein files being released.
Warp Speed. What we did a great job. But this was a tremendous problem for everybody. I mean, every country, even China, in all fairness, they got hit much later. People thought they avoided it. They got hit very hard. Everybody got hit. But we did a job like nobody's seen, and we came back, and we had a country that was respected again. And then we had this person get in there that had no right being president. He lost the election by a lot. His whole group was radical left, crazy people. And I'll tell you, our country was we were in a whole heap of trouble. And if that whole ideology didn't change, I think our country would have been dead. You know, they say it. I was with also the King of Saudi Arabia, the head of Qatar, the head of UAE about 3 months ago now already. The time flies. And they put up $5.1 trillion investment in our country.
The king or the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia?
And we have about...
I would be shocked if he was speaking to, isn't it bin Salman, who has advanced dementia? But maybe.
$17 trillion coming into our country. The numbers like we've never seen before. And by the way, this is after 6 months. This is this is after 6 months. We never had numbers like that after years. And our country is so hot, and we're building so many factories. The car companies that left, they're pouring back. The AI, which is a hot thing, we're leading China by a lot. We're leading everybody with AI.
AI, which is a hot thing.
Geniuses that you read about, they really are geniuses. I hope they're right. They're spending $50 billion to build a plant and $90 billion. You know, you think of $50 million for building a plant. No, they're building $50 billion, $90 billion. They're going to Arizona. They're going all over the country. Arizona's a hot spot, but they're going all over the country. And we're way ahead of everybody else. And, the biggest problem they had, they couldn't do the energy because the energy is massive. We need more electricity by twice that we have right now. In other words, as a country, we produce a lot of electricity. We need double that electricity at least to win the AI fight. Can you believe that? One industry needs it. And so you can't just do that off the grid. The grid is old and it's fine, but it's old and tired and is...
And privatized, as we know, in certain states like Texas, fucking ERCOT.
Subject to all sorts of problems. And I came up with an idea. I'm going to let you build your own electric plant. So we have these companies building these massive factories of intelligence, factories of genius, I call it, and they build their own electric plant with it. And I say, build them big. And we have a great person, Lee Zeldin, is approving them very quickly and environmentally friendly and all of that, but very, very quickly. And an amazing thing's happening. Wait till you see what happens when these things start to open.
Let me go back to this issue of Ukraine and Russia for a second. Most people, as they analyze this from the outside, this is how almost everybody's kind of universal thinking, how this ends. There's going to be some land swaps. There will be more Russian territory than there had been. And what Ukraine wants and needs desperately is our security measures that won't be NATO related. If you had to look into your crystal ball, is that how it ends?
Well, I think those are points that we negotiated. And
there's no way he's going to directly answer this question.
It's that we largely...
Other than maybe conceding that, like, yeah, I'm going to... they're going to have to accept that they're going to... Some of the territory is going to be annexed.
Actually, I think we've agreed on a lot. And I can tell you, the meeting was a very warm meeting. You know, he's a strong guy. He's tough as hell and all of that. But
yeah, that was the other thing I noticed, that he characterized what will be... He didn't even say annexation. He said land swaps, but they're not doing land swaps. It's going to be annexed.
Meeting was a very warm meeting between two very important countries.
Like Ukraine, yeah, like Ukraine is like giving over provinces, and Russia is giving air.
I think we're pretty close to it. Now, look, Ukraine has to agree to it. Maybe they'll say no, because Biden handed out money like it was candy, and Europe gave him a lot of money. You know, we gave him $350 billion. Europe gave them much less, but still a lot.
Okay, like he's also being like misleading when he says this. Like, we did not, the aid packages that were sent to Ukraine, he's making it sound like it was just like cash or something like that. No, it was like old weaponry that we weren't going to use.
$100 billion.
What would your advice, based on today, when you talk to Vladimir Zelensky, what's your advice to
make a deal?
If anything, like, again, we didn't send enough, and there were way too many restrictions on what we did send until the very end of Biden's presidency.
Make the deal.
Got to make a deal, yeah. Look,
it was like just enough that it was better than nothing, but not enough for them to actually do something.
And I gave them javelins, if you remember, in my first term. In fact, there was a statement. I gave javelins. You remember the statement? I gave javelins, and Obama gave, because it was Obama at that time, Obama gave them sheets. And that's true. I gave the javelins, and a lot of tanks were knocked out because of the javelins. The javelins, incredible weapon. It's a tank. You know, you look at this big, powerful tank. It ends up being a ball of metal lying on the ground and burning. I've never seen anything like it. We have the greatest military equipment in the world, but they did have courage in fighting. And, you know, they're fighting a big war machine. And I think, are close to a deal. But I don't like saying it. I always say, if I'm really close, I say 50-50, because so many things can happen. But
Suddenly, we're very, very modest over here and reserved in how much we want to state how close we are to a deal. And I guess, like, the closer you get to the deal, the more he's saying he likes to back off of it rhetorically, as far as his posture goes with respect to saying, like, how close they actually are.
I think President Putin would like to solve the problem, and it was,
even though, again, day one it ends.
This was a war. All of those families that lost somebody, and I have a book of thousands of people they presented.
This is a war. Lots of people have died. I have a book. Where are we going?
Prisoners.
Is he going to say that he smells burnt toast next?
Released. We have more than 1,000 prisoners.
That was agreed to today?
Well, they have to accept them. They're going to release them. They have to accept them. I have a book of every. It's so sad to see. And then you have another book of people that are dead, and they have dead bodies.
Another book of people that are dead, and that's sad to see.
Between the two countries.
And you saw the pictures?
I saw pictures of the dead, of some of the dead, but I saw pictures of over 1,000 people that are prisoners, today.
Let me ask you.
That we can get back.
Okay. So
he read a picture book.
Cutting into Russia's.
He read, being more accurate and charitable. I guess he's like thumbing through a coffee table book.
Main source
of dead
energy,
soldiers.
A main source of income, which is energy. You make this deal with the European Union. You tell India, if you keep importing oil from Russia, we're going to put a 50% tax on you. The other big importer would be China. My understanding is you've had conversations with President Xi. Any conversations about Russia, Ukraine?
So Biden did something that was unthinkable. He drove, and Obama too. I stopped it, and then, we had a tragedy happen, actually. It was a tragedy. The election was a tragedy. But he did something that was unthinkable. He drove China and Russia together. That's not good. If you are just a minor student of history, it's the one thing you didn't want to do. Because they're basically natural enemies. Russia has tremendous amounts of land. China has tremendous amounts of people. And China needs Russia land. But because of pure stupidity, they were driven together. And you know what?
Wonder who he's parroting right now, because there's absolutely no way if he was pressed on this question. And it's like, really? Okay, you believe that Obama's foreign policy decisions led to there being more strategic alliances between China and Russia? Please explain how. Like, how do those correlate?
That way, because it really is. There's a natural friction there. But I think that today's meeting went really well. And I think maybe we'll have a good result. But I just don't like
China and Russia are next to each other. They've been friends for centuries.
But that was like 2 days ago.
Natural friction, baby.
I said, Sean, you're going to ask me about what we
basically say on national TV. I regret saying yes to doing this.
Yeah, I shouldn't have done it, but that's okay.
You don't have to.
By the way, I have to say to the audience, this guy's a fan. You're going to ask, but I just don't like to talk about it. That's why I agreed to do your interview, and I said, you know what, I'll do it, Sean. But that was like 2 days ago. I had no idea that. I said, Sean, you're going to ask me about what we
basically say on national TV. I regret saying yes to doing this.
Yeah, I shouldn't have done it, but that's okay.
You don't have to.
By the way, I have to say to the audience, this guy's a fantastic person. He's a great patriot. You love the country.
I love our country.
He's addressing.
A smart cookie.
He's breaking the fourth wall.
Question that, which I don't think there are too many, and just an outstanding man.
I love the fact that
the glazing back and forth on this one.
This
mutual.
Is not insignificant. I agree with you. I don't like to see the dying. I don't think I'd want to see the books that you saw today.
I didn't like
scary picture books.
When you talked before coming here about the consequences for Vladimir Putin being severe, I found that interesting. Severe would be defined by me. India doesn't buy your oil. The European Union won't buy it. And why in the back of my head was I thinking, wait a minute, Donald Trump just delayed possible increase in tariffs on China. Why do I think that probably President Trump was thinking ahead that maybe if you had to, that would have been part of the consequences?
Well, because of what happened today, I think I don't have to think about that. Now, I may have to think about it in 2 weeks or 3 weeks or something, but we don't have to think about that right now. I think the meeting went very well.
All right. Do you ever think Hillary Clinton, the author?
Yeah, again, they keep saying this. Like, this is their line. It's like, great progress, even though, like, again, empty-handed.
The bought and paid for Russian disinformation dossier, the author of the Russia.
What, the Steele thing? What are we talking about?
Clinton, the author of the bought and paid for Russian disinformation dossier. They're
talking about this. They always focus on this. They completely ignore the Mueller report, or the fact that was not the only that dossier didn't lead to like any indictments or whatever. It had limitations that were openly acknowledged. It was leaked, classified info that was published or whatever.
Russia hoax going into today would be saying she would nominate you for a Nobel Peace Prize. I don't think you ever expected that happening.
Well, I don't want to be involved in that sense, not because of her. It's very nice. If she said that, it's very nice. I really appreciate it, too, actually. But
she tried to ruin your life, and in many ways, she ruined 3 years of your life.
Well, she made me stronger and tougher.
We're praising Hillary Clinton.
Way more
why does he have to be like, why is he being so reluctant to fucking trash her? This is somebody who fucking ran in 2016 on Lock Her Up. This is somebody who literally on the debate stage was like, she was saying like in America, like laws, he doesn't want to enforce the laws. And he was like, you shouldn't want laws enforced because if they were, honey, you'd be in jail. Now, all of a sudden we're giving her fucking props for shit. What?
To me, that's
it's not because of her. It's very nice if she said that.
Peace Prize. I don't think you ever expected that happening.
Well, you know, I don't want to be involved in that in the sense, not because of her. It's very nice. If she said that, that's very nice. I really appreciate it, too, actually. But
she tried to ruin your life, and in many ways, she ruined 3 years of your life.
Well, she made me stronger and tougher.
I mean, maybe it's because she praised him or whatever, because she's like saying, like, sure, I'd nominate him for the Nobel Peace Prize or whatever if he's not going to capitulate to Putin. But the idea that it would get that in response, damn.
And, you know, we had...
You are way more forgiving than me.
Well, it was a sad chapter in our country's history. I will say that. Look, you can't run a country that way. You know, Vladimir Putin said something, one of the most interesting things. He said your election was rigged because you have mail-in voting.
Okay.
He said mail-in voting every election. He said no country has mail-in voting. It's impossible to have mail-in voting.
Like Vladimir Putin, head of state of Russia, that has held rigged elections throughout, is like Putin's quarter-century reign is like now going to be the authority on like. I mean, he does know voter fraud in that sense, but like what? Why are we listening to him at like his assessments of like the security of U.S. elections?
Voting and have honest elections. And he said that to me. It was very interesting because we talked about 2020. He said, you won that election by so much. And that's how he got it. He said, and if you would have won, we wouldn't have had a war. You'd have all these millions of people alive now instead of dead. And he said, and you lost it because of mail-in voting. It was a rigged election. But mail-in voting, Sean, the politicians, I think I'm going to make it a big, I know the answer, is that Jimmy Carter, years ago, along with Scoop Jackson and some others, they had a committee. Respected people, good committee, Jimmy Carter, good guy.
Scoop Jackson?
Good man. And the conclusion was you can't have mail-in voting. We have mail-in voting. It's so dishonest. They send stuff. Some people get 7 back.
Did Jimmy Carter ever say that there should not be mail-in voting? It's from the Carter Center. In response to diverse news reports about his views on absentee ballots, former U.S. President Jimmy Carter said today, I approve the use of absentee ballots and have been using them for more than 5 years. President Carter previously endorsed the use of mail-in ballots in a May 6, 2020 statement, elaborating on the findings of the 2005 Commission on Federal Election Reform, which he co-chaired with former Secretary of State James A. Baker. That statement is here. So maybe, is he like reversing? Only Quora is like answering the question that I'm interested in knowing about. Did he distrust mail-in voting? Maybe they have a source or something. Carter's take on mailed-in ballot voting was a long time ago, 2005, before most of the security systems that had been put in place in more recent times. And at that time, only Oregon conducted all its elections that way, aka vote at home or VAH. Once Carter saw and understood the enhancements that had been instituted since he made his initial remarks decades ago, he changed his opinion, and that is reflected in the fact that now 8 states plus DC conduct all their elections that way, representing about 18% of all U.S. voters, with about 35% of all U.S. ballots cast in 2022 coming from those that were mailed-in voters. So in reversal, he embraces vote by mail. Reversing a view the GOP often cites, which is literally what's happening here. Always Quora, Reddit with the answers. It always is like the most... This shouldn't actually... Usually it's with more niche shit. This should not be niche. So he embraces vote by mail. Jimmy Carter has become the first former president to publicly support making mail-in voting a nationwide option this year. His endorsement is important not only because he's among the few elder American statesmen with significant respect from voters of both parties. He's also spent much of the past 3 decades monitoring elections of other countries for signs of corruption, and he co-chaired a bipartisan commission in 2005 that labeled absentee ballots the easiest way to commit voter election fraud. Republicans have frequently pointed to that one conclusion in explaining their opposition to a widespread expansion of voting from home. But Carter on Wednesday said a wave of safeguards adopted in the past 15 years have changed his mind, and that the coronavirus pandemic makes a quick embrace imperative. Then his statement, which we read. So, okay. So we're like, this opinion that he's talking about is literally something, an opinion that was based off of a commission that was generated in 2005. So 20 years ago. And leaving out that he's reversed his position.
Respected people, good committee. Jimmy
and not just arbitrarily reversed the position or for partisan reasons and reversed it. because of data and evidence.
A good guy. He's a good man. And the conclusion was you can't have mail-in voting. We have mail-in voting. It's so dishonest. They send stuff. Some people get 7 ballots. Look at California with that horrible governor they have. He's one of the worst governors in history.
Newsom.
He's incompetent. He doesn't know what he's doing.
Newsom.
They send out like 38 million ballots. Some people get 5, 6, 7. But Vladimir Putin, smart guy, said you can't have an honest election with mail-in voting. And he said there's not a country in the world that uses it now.
Okay, that's, to my knowledge, that's not what he said. He just said it would be the easiest way if there were to be interference or a disruption of a free and fair election. It would be through this.
I would love to see election reform.
We have to do it. I don't know why we're not doing it.
No,
If you bring it up, the Democrats don't want it. Look, the Republicans want it.
The Republicans control the House and the fucking Senate. So if they really want it, why aren't they passing legislation to get it done?
But not strongly enough. I mean, they got to want it strong because it can't be honest. It goes through a postman. It goes through somebody else. You know, when you go to a really well-run voting booth.
Oh, he was quoting Putin on that one for some fucking, I mean, again, Putin's an authority on this for some reason.
You go in, you have to hand a card, a picture, or this or that. You don't have everything perfect. You get sent back. Go get it. It's very hard to do something fraudulent with a vote.
Paper ballots.
Mail-in voting, they give you boxes of stuff you have no idea.
Oh, I was like, oh my God, he admitted it's hard. Thank you for the bits. Clear watch. Imagine how simple it is for Vladimir Putin to manipulate Trump. Putin is a cold-blooded KGB-trained sociopath. Talk about being overtrained for the task. Thank you very much for the 100 bits. I don't disagree.
Idea where they came from.
I mean, like, you literally saw it happen. All it took was Hillary Clinton, like, I won't say paying lip service, because that is probably fucking sincere. Coming from her, yeah, of course, she'll praise Trump. And like even go so far as to say I'll nominate him for that fucking Nobel Peace Prize if he doesn't capitulate to Putin. And he immediately he immediately backs off. Immediately.
You can't have a great democracy, republic. You can't have it. Well, maybe that's why we're going to end up with a communist mayor in New York. I don't know. Maybe
I wish.
He's very happy with mail-in voting. But you can't
just a
have
socialist one.
A great democracy with mail-in voting.
Voter ID, signature verification, chain of custody controls, updated voter rolls, partisan observers watching the voting all day, the vote counting all night. You do paper ballots, you pick a winner, and everyone goes home with confidence in the integrity.
For 10% of the cost.
Yeah.
So if you do paper ballots, it costs you 10% the cost of machines.
Let me ask you this. The Trump doctrine. I have a definition of it. I've said it many times on TV and on radio. I can give you my version of it, or
the Trump doctrine.
Will you give us your version?
I'd rather have your version.
You want my version? I'll give you my version.
I don't even know if he knows what this is.
I've heard it before. I love it. Go ahead.
No forever wars. However, some are interpreting that to mean isolationism. No. You've never been an isolationist. Your first term, you beat the hell out of the ISIS caliphate in record time. Right. You took out Soleimani on that tarmac. You beat Baghdadi and associates.
Again, praising him for an assassination that was destabilizing to Iran, but whatever.
You dropped the mother of all bombs on Afghanistan. Your second term.
Yeah, he increased bombing in Afghanistan in his first term, which is so funny because nobody ever brings that up when they're so busy saying he's a fucking dove. He's the anti-war president. He's, again, this is actually great to show somebody who even wants to claim that Trump is a dove or an isolationist. These foreign policy wins, if you even just scrutinize them for just like 10, 15, 30 seconds, you will quickly see that Trump was escalating a lot of these conflicts. Like more bombs were dropped in 2019 in Afghanistan due to Donald Trump's relaxing of rules of engagement in that region than there had been in like over 10 years, maybe even 20.
You did something I don't think anybody thought would happen, and that is somebody had the courage. They talked a lot about it for decades, taking out Iran's nuclear program.
Or like Tomahawk missiles and, I don't want to get this wrong. I can't remember if it's Syria or Libya. I want to say it's Syria.
So you're not an isolationist, but you don't want forever wars either. Right. And every action you've taken militarily is consistent with that philosophy.
And I beat ISIS. We wiped out ISIS.
You beat the ISIS
and
caliphate.
General Kane, who's with us right now.
Yeah, it was Syria. The 2017 Shayrat missile strike. 59 Tomahawk cruise missiles from the Mediterranean Sea into Syria. Aims at a base controlled by the Syrian government, authorized by Trump, a direct response to the chemical attack that occurred on April 4th. Strike was the first unilateral military action by the U.S. state targeting the Syrian government during the Syrian civil war. President Trump stated shortly thereafter, it is in the vital national security interest of the U.S. to prevent and deter the spread and use of deadly chemical weapons. Syrian Air Force launched airstrikes against the rebels from the base only hours after the American attack. It was reported that advance warning was given to Russia, an ally of the Syrian government, by the U.S. prior to the U.S. missile strike.
Right outside, actually. General Kane, we call him Raisin Kane. That's his nickname.
Yeah, Trump also did more drone strikes in his first term than Obama did, but this is memory hold and also not going to be brought up here, I guess. Or, maybe he would bring it up because that's him being like tough on crime globally, right? Or something, some weird cope.
That's a good name.
What's my nickname? I don't even want to know.
He's a great guy, but General Kane was the one that did it. Beat ISIS. I was told it was going to take 5 years. He did it in 4 weeks.
Wow. Mr. President, I'm going to let you.
ISIS is still very much alive. I think it's overstated the extent to which, hold on. My mic. It's constantly overstated the extent to which the United States has made a dent in ISIS, especially since fall of Assad. But whatever.
You go, but a big day today, and you're going to fly back, I assume, to our nation's capital. And probably have time to reflect on this day. The next step, you had said that you wanted a meeting as quickly as possible, maybe with you, President Zelensky, and President Putin.
Yeah.
I don't know if I trust the two of them in a room alone together. I think it would be better if you are there.
Well, they both want me there.
Did that come up?
Yeah, it did. I mean, they both want me there, and I'll be there. You got to see it out. And it is a big day. I think either way, it's
5 years to 4 weeks. He's shameless with it. Yeah, did you all know that ISIS defeated 4 weeks? Apparently, it's all it took to destroy the Islamic State.
It's a big day, but if we get this solved, it's a really big day because we're going to save a lot of lives.
Are you confident it can happen in a shorter time period?
Fairly short, yeah.
Fairly short. Yeah. So maybe in the next month?
I thought this would be the easiest of them all, and it was the most difficult. Again, you say 6 or 7. It's a lot.
Time frames are hard.
I've done it. I've saved a lot of lives.
No, it's not. If you get this one, that'll be 8. I got it.
It's so fucking. I think it's the most tacky thing. That doesn't even begin to describe it. That he keeps repeating. If I had been president, these people wouldn't have died.
My count is 8. If you include the Abraham Accords, is more.
Abraham Accords?
By the way, the impression of you is, I think a lot of people, because I think there's a false caricature of you, that Donald Trump would be the leading candidate for the Nobel Peace Prize, might make some liberals' head explode, but you are involving yourself. You are expending political capital. And there, in many...
I mean, yeah, but you literally just quoted Hillary Clinton saying that, if he doesn't capitulate to Putin, I will nominate him for a Nobel Peace Prize for doing the bare fucking minimum. So clearly not all liberals' heads will explode. You can always rely on a hawkish liberal to make unnecessary concessions and overtures like that to get what they want foreign policy-wise.
Instances is really not a lot of benefit for the United States, except that you keep doing your day job.
Well, it's interesting because somebody said, if I get this settled, I'll get the Nobel Peace Prize. I said, well, I'm not involved in it, but what about the other 6 wars or whatever it is? I mean, those were big.
Maybe I can get involved with them so I can end them and then take credit for it.
Go to Africa, the Congo against Rwanda.
Yeah.
31 years, 8 million people dead, and I settled it. What about
by the way, how do you settle India, Pakistan?
Well, because I deal with all of the countries for trade. And while I have them on the phone, if I'm dealing with them, or my people, Scott and Howard and all the people that are doing such a great job, and Marco Rubio has been fantastic, JD has been fantastic. We have a great group of people. So if there's a war going on, they say, there's a war going on, and if we're doing trade with one or both of them.
If there's a war going on, we say, there's a war going on. Thank you for the follow. Profound.
I say, we're not going to do a deal unless you make peace. You have no idea. I mean, I've settled wars that have gone on for 35 years, a couple of them, and the Congo and Rwanda, that was 31 years, I think 8 million people dead with machetes, a lot of machete deaths. They walk in, the machetes are swinging all over the place. What a horrible situation, and we got it settled.
Mr. President, I know you may spend more time. I never did an interview with somebody that said, I regret sitting here doing the interview. You could take it back if you want.
Well, you said 10 minutes, and you've kept me a little bit longer than that.
Mr. President,
right.
It's
Weird.
a historic day. And I know that Americans...
It's a historic day. I mean, that's true, but not for the reason that you think. Something fucking happened. They did not make the progress that they said that they would. They did not make the headway. They are overstating the extent to which this was fucking a success.
I think this transcends political ideology. I think most people understand that the death, the dying, the war, if it stops, that's a great thing for everybody. I wish you all the success in your mission, and thank you for taking the time to talk to us. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Sean. Appreciate it.
That's always ending it.
Thank you.
All right. Let's see. So these two articles, Trump and Putin put on a show of friendship, but come away without a deal. This is published yesterday. Trump and Putin of Russia reached no agreement to end the war in Ukraine at a high-profile summit meeting on Friday, although they reported making unspecified progress during a strikingly convivial reunion on American soil. While Mr. Trump had hoped to seal a deal for an immediate ceasefire, which we knew wasn't going to happen, he acknowledged that the two leaders fell short, at least for now. We haven't quite got there, but we've made some headway, he told reporters after hours of meetings on a U.S. military base in Alaska. There's no deal until there's a deal. Tautology. But if the substance remains unsettled, the atmospherics were extraordinary. The president rolled out a literal red carpet and even applauded as he welcomed Mr. Putin, who is under U.S. sanctions. Is there a video of this? Who is under U.S. sanctions and faces an international arrest warrant for war crimes. The two laughed and spoke warmly with each other, and Mr. Trump even invited Mr. Putin to ride with him in the armored presidential limousine to their meeting. How sweet. At their subsequent joint appearance at side-by-side lecterns at Joint Base Elmendorf-Richardson, they heaped praise on one another. We really made some great progress today, Mr. Trump said. It's like they just got out of marriage counseling and they had a breakthrough. I've always had a fantastic relationship with President Putin, with Vladimir. First name basis. Isn't that sweet? Mr. Putin referred to Mr. Trump as a dear neighbor with whom he can do business. President Trump and I have established a very good businesslike and trustworthy contact, he said in Russian. The Russian president even suggested that Mr. Trump visit him in the Russian capital. Next time in Moscow, he said, breaking into English. Ooh, that's an interesting one, Mr. Trump replied. I don't know. I'll get a little heat on that one, but I could see it possibly happening. It's like they're planning a honeymoon next time in Moscow. The two ended their encounter. I feel like the New York Times is leading into it with the language that they're using. Their encounter in Alaska. However, in a cloud of uncertainty, Mr. Trump referred obliquely to an agreement on some undisclosed points, but not on others, while Mr. Putin said even more elliptically that they reached an understanding. Neither explained nor took questions from reporters. Mr. Trump said he would follow up by calling fellow NATO leaders and President Zelensky of... How come sometimes I see Zelensky's last name spelled with two Y's, which is how I thought it was spelled, and then they're doing one Y, of Ukraine. The meeting was a major diplomatic gamble by Mr. Trump, unlike anything his predecessors might have tried. Why do they keep saying this? This is so... I feel like this is not fucking true. Like, it's only a diplomatic gamble in the context, again, in the context of judging it against what previous U.S. heads of state would do in approaching, like, negotiating a ceasefire. Sure, it's a break from that. As far as it actually being a gamble, like, politically, not really. Trump clearly doesn't care if, like, Putin is not really sanctioned. Trump, unlike anything his predecessors might have tried and seen as a victory for Mr. Putin, who has not been welcome in the West for years and now has been effectively liberated from the diplomatic isolation he'd been consigned to for the past 3 years. I just don't know that, like, this is the way I would describe these events. In fact, it would be hard to imagine an event that could have gone better from the point of the Russian leader, who made no public commitment to stop his assault in Ukraine, and yet was treated as a valued friend. Mr. Trump did not fault Mr. Putin for starting the brutal war, as we know, based on the Sean Hannity interview. Of course, it's Biden's fault, and left without mentioning the sanctions that just hours earlier he had threatened to impose if there was no deal. Jesus Christ, what a fucking cuck. What a fucking cuck. The images emerging from the Alaska encounter were remarkable in the history of U.S.-Russian summits. And he's a cock for, like, not following through on his word, not necessarily because I'm like gung-ho about sanctions. The images emerging from the Alaska encounter were remarkable in the history of U.S.-Russian summits. Mr. Putin, who has not been to the United States outside of UN meetings since 2007 and has been under U.S. sanctions since 2022, was invited to a military base that is on the front line of the defense of American territory against possible Russian aggression. Flying... Wait. What's this image? It looks so short. Not holding frame. Mr. Trump greeted Putin on the tarmac. The meeting was the 7th in-person encounter between the two and the first of the American second term. Trump doesn't even realize Moscow isn't an option if they want Zelensky there. He's so dumb. The next meeting in Kiev, Trump. Flying overhead as Mr. Putin arrived is a B-2 stealth bomber that is key to the U.S. nuclear deterrent, flanked by the kind of fighter jets that are often deployed to intercept Russian planes in the airspace near Alaska. Standing on the tarmac waiting, Mr. Trump clapped for Mr. Putin as the Russians strode toward him. Hell of a description. Then gave him a warm handshake. Can we get a visual? Grok, can I get a visual? Jamie, can we pull this up? Trump claps for Putin, red carpet. Let's see. You're doing amazing, sweetie. This is like a gift to him. And then rode in the limousine together. Who knows how cozy they got in the back. Then gave him a warm handshake, patting his arm and hand. Mr. Putin smiled broadly and talked jovially with Mr. Trump like old friends. When a reporter asked Mr. Putin if he would stop killing civilians, he smirked and pointed to his ear as if to suggest he could not hear the question. I mean, it's actually a kind of a clever way to avoid engaging with questions like that. Mr. Trump's invitation to Mr. Putin to join him in the armored presidential limousine for the ride to their meeting location without aides was a highly unusual gesture. This was an AIDS-free meeting. Mr. Putin could be seen through the window laughing as the car pulled away. This article is amazing. Democrats contended that hosting Mr. Putin under such circumstances sent a dangerous message. The photo op in and of itself essentially legitimizes war crimes, telegraphs to other autocrats or evil men around the world that they can get away with murdering civilians and still get a photo op with the president of the United States. This would be far more based if Democrats didn't do this exact same shit and worse, literally inviting him to Congress, standing ovation, glazing Benjamin Netanyahu, an even bigger criminal. It's like, it's so disingenuous, but, you know, I feel like it's stupid to poo-poo the opposition to all of this because they're being hypocritical. It's like better than nothing. Senator Chris Murphy, Democrat of Connecticut, said earlier on Friday on MSNBC's Morning Joe, I just can't get over this. Again, you could literally describe this of every single Democrat that has ever met with, spoken to Benjamin Netanyahu. The hurriedly arranged meeting was meant to break the logjam that has stymied Mr. Trump's peacemaking efforts since he returned to office 6 months ago with the promise to end the Ukraine war within 24 hours. The rest of the world watched to see whether Mr. Trump would find common ground with Mr. Putin and whether Ukraine's interests would be represented or sacrificed by the leaders of the two major nuclear superpowers. I think we know the answer to that. What's happening there? Mr. Trump told reporters on Air Force One on the way to Alaska that he hoped to broker at least a temporary end to hostilities. I want to see a ceasefire rapidly, he said. I don't know if it's going to be today, but I'm not going to be happy if it's not today. Do you think at any point in this, he suggested, did he even suggest the Lex Friedman plan of, trying love and friendship, asking if we can get Putin and Zelensky in a room and seeing if they'll kiss, if they can shake hands, if he has it, and asking Zelensky if he has it in his heart to forgive Putin. He repeated this morning that he would impose severe consequences if Russia balked at a halt to the fighting without specifying what they might be. And he promised to involve Ukraine in any decision over territorial concessions that might accompany a more enduring peace settlement. Mr. Zelensky, who was not invited to the conference, called to determine his country's future, sought to influence it from afar by reminding the world that Russia continues to attack civilian targets in hopes of stiffening Mr. Trump's spine against Russian spin. On the day of negotiations, the Russians are killing as well, Mr. Zelensky said in a video posted online before the meeting began. And that speaks volumes, he added. Ukraine is ready to work as productively as possible to bring the war to an end, and we count on a strong position from America. Everything will depend on this. The Russians factor in American strength. Make no mistake, strength. The meeting was the 7th in-person encounter between Trump and Putin and the first of the Americans' second term. Mr. Trump said in the days leading up to the Alaska get-together that it was meant to be a listening session. What is this fucking TikTok shit? A listening session? To determine whether peace was possible? and that if he decided it was, he would then invite Mr. Zelensky to sit down with Mr. Putin directly. No mention of that was made following Friday's session. While it was originally scheduled to be a one-on-one meeting with Mr. Putin, along with interpreters, the session was expanded at the last minute to include Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Steve Witkoff, the president's special envoy. Thank you for the follow, Zeta physician, who has been negotiating with the Russians. God, Rubio's ears, the size of Rubio's ears never cease to amaze me. They are gargantuan. Mr. Putin was joined by Sergei V. Lavrov, his often a combative foreign minister, who sent a pointed message when he arrived in Alaska the previous night wearing a sweatshirt emblazoned with CCCP, the Cyrillic letters for USSR. When it says emblazoned, for some reason, I'm like, it's registering as like bedazzled. I was like, he wore like a bedazzled sweatshirt. Almost 4 a.m. now, guys. The two leaders, however, spent less time together than originally scheduled. They had to cut it early. Raising questions about how far they got, and they scrapped plans to hold a news conference in favor of the two making back-to-back statements on camera without answering questions. Neither did much to illuminate what happened behind closed doors, and American officials did not brief reporters, as is traditionally done after such meetings. Holy shit, he wore that? Let's see what this looks like. Epic troll. That's how the New York Post characterizes it. Thank you for the follow. Clear watch. He literally rolled out a red carpet for him. Could you imagine if Barack Obama had done that? That is always a fun game to play in this moment. Just imagine all of this shit. Just play this game of imagine if Bernie Sanders did that. Imagine if AOC did that. Imagine if Obama did that. Imagine if Biden did that. Imagine if Hillary Clinton and won and did any of this shit. The two leaders, however, we saw this. In a rare move for the host of a diplomatic meeting, Mr. Trump deferred to his Russian visitor to speak first at their public appearance. Mr. Putin played to his host's sensibilities by offering validation of his longstanding insistence that Moscow would not have staged its full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022 if Mr. Trump had still been president. Today, we hear President Trump say, if I were president, there would be no war, Mr. Putin said. I think that would actually happen. I confirmed this. Very cool. Thank you, Vladimir. He suggested that the two would now succeed at ending that war without saying how. I would like to hope that the understanding we have reached will allow us to get closer to that goal, Mr. Putin said, of security for Ukraine and open the way to peace in Ukraine. But he still insisted that any enduring resolution had to address the root causes of the war, a phrase that in the past he has used to insist on conditions unacceptable to the West, including a rollback of NATO and neutralization of Ukraine. And he asserted that Ukraine might throw a wrench in any peace effort through provocations or behind-the-scenes intrigues. The provocations being resisting Russian imperialism, I suppose. When it came to his turn, Mr. Trump was equally vague on what, if anything, they had concurred. We had an extremely productive meeting and many points were agreed to. Points certainly were made. And there are just very few that are left. We didn't get there, but we have a very good chance of getting there. The flattery by the former KGB officer certainly registered. In an interview with Sean Hannity of Fox News afterwards, Mr. Trump, okay, so there is news reporting on this. Why is it buried in this article? Because when I searched Sean Hannity, Fox News, Trump, fact check, nothing came up. Mr. Trump volunteered that he was very happy to hear Mr. Putin say that the invasion would not have happened on his watch. Embarrassing. More broadly, he expressed satisfaction with the discussion, declaring that on a scale of 1 to 10, the meeting was a 10 in the sense that we got along great. Thank God, everyone's top priority. He also shifted the burden for ending the war away from the Russian leader who started it, asserting that Mr. Putin wants to solve the problem and that now it is really up to President Zelensky to get it done. Mr. Trump, who has long expressed admiration for Mr. Putin, returned to the White House in January, expecting to translate their friendly relationship into tangible process. But after his repeated promise during last year's campaign to end the Ukraine war within 24 hours, Mr. Trump discovered what others had long tried to convince him of. Mr. Putin was not eager to make peace. He was at least not on terms acceptable to Ukraine. Mr. Putin brought with him a number of business executives in hopes of appealing to Mr. Trump's desire to rekindle economic ties that were all but shattered by the 2022 full-scale invasion. On the plane ride to Alaska, Mr. Trump said that the Ukraine conflict would have to be resolved first. They are not doing business until we get the war settled, he said. Oh my God, what is going on in chat tonight? Questions about Taiwan, tofu, Asian. Guys, please be on topic or I will time you out. Please. I don't even care if you debate back and forth. I just wanted your fucking chats to be on topic. Mr. Trump said that he expected that territorial concessions would be part of a more sustained peace agreement that would follow a temporary ceasefire, but acknowledged that Kiev would have to agree. I've got to let Ukraine make that decision, he said. I think they'll make a proper decision, but I'm not here to negotiate for Ukraine. He also said that there's a possibility of security assurances. Awesome. For Ukraine from the U.S. in conjunction with Europe as part of an eventual peace deal, but not in the form of NATO membership, which has been a key point of dispute between Moscow and Kiev. Russia's leader was not the only autocrat Mr. Trump freed from diplomatic isolation on Friday. As he made his way to Alaska, the president called President Alexander Lukashenko of Belarus one of the longest ruling dictators in the world and a figure long shunned by American and European leaders. Writing on social media, Mr. Trump said that he had a wonderful talk with the highly respected president of Belarus, Lukashenko, to thank him for the release of 16 prisoners who were pardoned last month for crimes including extremism. Mr. Trump added that they were discussing the release of another 1,300 prisoners. The government of Belarus later reported that Mr. Lukashenko invited Trump to visit and that the invitation was accepted. The White House did not immediately confirm that, but Mr. Trump wrote on social media that I look forward to meeting President Lukashenko in the future. Weird. While President Barack Obama posed for a courtesy picture with Lukashenko during a UN meeting in 2015, American leaders have kept their distance from him during his 31-year reign. Mr. Trump, though, has shown more willingness to engage. This is the art of the deal. During his first term, he sent Mike Pompeo, then his Secretary of State, and John R. Bolton, then his National Security Advisor, to meet with Lukashenko in Belarus. Alrighty. No deal, but no consequence for Putin. Mr. Trump's failure to reach an accord on Ukraine only made his warm welcome for the Russian leader more striking. This is basically the same article we just read. So here's a fun thing that we're going to do. Yesterday, Charlie Kirk uploaded a video of everything that he expected Trump to accomplish in this summit with Putin. And we're going to see how much of it actually came to fruition. I think that's what this is. Trump and Putin meet soon. What to expect? So let's see. This is 14 hours ago. Let's see if this aged like a fine wine or like milk.
Radio stations across the country. Happy Friday. Honored to be with you as always. We are here at the Bitcoin.com studio.
The Polymarket
studio.
Studio.
Very big day. And we're going to be covering it throughout the day as breaking news happens. But first, we want to foreshadow. And more importantly, we just want to describe what is happening before the big meeting in Alaska. President Donald Trump right now is on a plane. He's on Air Force One. He's on a plane flying from.
So quiet. Hold on.
Joint Andrews Air Force Base, all the way boom, across the North American continent to Alaska. Before we go into the details of this, I just want to say this is President Trump at his best. He does not have to be doing this. He doesn't.
This is exactly what the fuck I was talking about as far as it not being risky whatsoever for his base. He will get praise no matter what, but for this, he's going to get an extra fucking glazing.
Trying to stop his 7th war. Let me say that again. He is trying to stop his 7th war. He's flying all the way across America and across Canada, confronting a foreign leader and taking a risk that this very well could fail because he wants peace. The president is...
Okay, so even if he fails, you still have to praise him. The same way that Ben Shapiro demands that you give white people credit for ending the institution of slavery that they upheld.
Doing this because he does not want to see the bloodshed, the suffering of 5,000 to 7,000 people dying per week. And
okay, so Trump literally said that that's what he's trying to avoid in his interview with Sean Hannity. So we're literally just repeating that verbatim from, I guess, White House talking points.
Or what? What is the goal? What is the objective? And if it's 5,000 to 7,000 people a week, you're talking about 300,000 to 400,000 people a year, generations of young Ukrainians and Russians, because the Russians matter too. The Russians are made in the image of God here too. Plus all the...
You think he'd feel this way? This is literally... Where is it? He really said, no, I need it to be bigger and better quality. Fuck. I'd like to make a toast to the troops, all the troops, both sides. So again, they're made in the image of God. This is just like a neutral affirmation for the love that we have for all of humanity. Do you think that extends to like Hamas, ISIS fighters? Do you think that extends to I don't fucking know, like soldiers for like North Korea? Like why is he doing? We know why he's doing this, but it's so fucking ridiculous to pose as like, again, I'm just for everybody living. I'm a humanitarian, actually.
Casualties and all the refugees. And for what? President Donald Trump is taking a mature approach here. Now, mind you, this summit comes on the heels of President Trump rushing more artillery and more military support for Ukraine. You see, Putin had a certain calculation. Putin thought that if Trump was going to send all of these armaments to Ukraine, that the Maga base would revolt against Donald Trump. There's been no such revolt, actually.
Okay, if he actually thought that, then he's a moron and underestimating the extent to which a cult of personality surrounds Trump. They were obviously going to just follow him and do whatever, like be completely fine with whatever he wants.
Not love the idea of further armaments, but we trust the president and we have confidence in the president that he's using that towards a peace settlement. Vladimir Putin very well might...
Wait, really quick. I swear he said Trump was the one that rushed... Ukraine aid, but like, I mean, I remember Biden doing that before he left office, but...
Approach here. Now, mind you, this summit comes on the heels of President Trump rushing more artillery and more military support for Ukraine.
Okay, what? Let me see. President Trump rushes artillery to Ukraine. This is reported July 9th by Reuters. U.S. military delivering some weapons to Ukraine after pause. U.S. is delivering artillery shells and mobile rocket artillery missiles to Ukraine, two U.S. officials told Reuters on Wednesday, days after President Donald Trump's administration halted shipments of some critical weapons to Kiev. The pause in some weapons shipments last week appeared to... appeared to have been tied to concerns that U.S. military stockpiles might be too low, officials had said. What was the context of this? Since then, Trump said he did not know who ordered the pause and that he would send more. I don't know what's going on in my own government. And that he would send more weapons to Ukraine, primarily defensive ones, to help the war-torn country defend itself against intensifying Russian advances. The officials, anonymous of course, said 155 millimeter artillery shells and GMLRs, mobile rocket artillery missiles, were now being provided to Ukraine. The officials did not say how many weapons are being sent and whether the shipment was complete. It was also unclear why the latest shipments only included shells and artillery missiles and whether any decisions had been made to resume shipments of other weapons. Ukrainian President Zelensky said on Tuesday that he ordered an expansion of contacts with the U.S. to ensure critical deliveries of military supplies, primarily air defense. Trump has said he will consider sending Patriot air defense missiles to Ukraine, but it is unclear when. The shipment paused last week, including 30 Patriot missiles, 8,500 155 millimeter artillery shells, more than 250 precision GMLRs missiles, and 142 Hellfire air-to-surface missiles. Kiev has said that more air defense systems are desperately needed to help counter the swarms of drones and missiles Russia has been sending since its invasion in 2022. Russia targeted Ukraine with a record 728 drones overnight. This I remembered. The attack, which follows a series of escalating air assaults on Ukraine in recent weeks, showed the need for biting sanctions on the sources of income Russia uses to finance the war, including on those who buy Russian oil, Zelensky said on Telegram. Okay, so I love how he fence sits on this issue in a way that he doesn't do with Israel, Palestine. He's like obviously a fucking Christian Zionist and a rabid one at that. But he has to overstate the extent to which Trump has like provided military support for Ukraine, even though, again, it's like, well, after there was a pause and then he didn't even bring it back to the levels it had been pre-pause.
You see Trump, a mature...
It like, you know, not the severity, but it reminds me of like Holocaust deniers. And it's like, it didn't happen, but if it did, it was good. And it's like, you know, Trump didn't abandon Ukraine because he gave them all those weapons. But if he had abandoned them, that would be okay too.
Approach here. Now, mind you, this summit comes on the heels of President Trump rushing more artillery and more military support for Ukraine.
I'd hardly call a month ago like the heels. I think that's definitely it. Like making it sound like this was like last week or something. It was over a month ago.
You see, Putin had a certain calculation. Putin thought that if Trump was going to send all of these armaments to Ukraine, that the MAGA...
He knows Putin, man. Listen to Charlie Kirk for his armchair analysis of what Putin's up to.
...base would revolt against Donald Trump. There's been no such revolt, actually. We might not love the idea of further armaments, but we trust the president. And
he's literally doing the thing where he's saying that, like, okay, I don't like it, but he did do the thing, even though he's overstating the extent to which he did the thing.
Confidence the president that he's using that towards a peace settlement. Vladimir Putin very well might have misread the room. The buried lead of this is not the fact that President Trump is flying across the continent. That should be appreciated. But instead, why is Putin flying? Why is Putin kind of taking the beta role here, flying to America?
Oh my God, the fucking cope. The fucking cope, the idea that the red carpet being rolled out for Vladimir Putin, who had been diplomatically isolated from the United States in an unprecedented one-on-one meeting with the head of state, a summit on U.S. soil. He's actually the fucking beta here, you guys. And Trump clapping for him, yeah, that's still Putin not getting the upper hand somehow. Fantastic.
Not on his turf or on neutral ground. What is Putin doing? That's the part that has fascinated me.
This is a gift to him, dude. You're an idiot. Oh my God.
Throughout all this. And I want to explore that together because Putin doesn't have to be sending in tons of aircraft. Reports are showing he's bringing in like 500 people and they're flying in planes. I mean, a lot of ordinary Russians are pretty angry about this summit. So what is Putin doing here? This is the first presidential meeting between...
Yeah, because the war is unpopular with them too. They struggle with conscription. The narcissist prayer that didn't happen. And if it did, it wasn't that bad. And if it were, it's not a big deal. And if it is, it's not my fault. And if I was, I didn't mean it. And if I did, you deserved it. Yup, literally. Thank you for the bits, Clear Watch.
U.S. president
perfectly applies here, unfortunately.
Had no interest in this. So we know why Trump is doing it, because he loves America. He doesn't want to see us in another boondoggle, doesn't want to see us in a quagmire, and his heart
he loves America.
Hurts for 7,000 dead people a week. And for all the liberals that attack Donald Trump, he is a better person than Joe Biden because he actually cares about 7,000 Russians and Ukrainians dying. He's doing something to stop it. But what is Putin doing?
Again, so if you're praising Donald Trump for sending like artillery shells a month ago, after a pause, wait until I tell you that Joe Biden sent like a massive stockpile like not long before he left office, literally because of Trump's. Biden rushing assistance to Ukraine with aid uncertain under Trump. This was November 6, 2024. In summary, White House aims to send $9 billion in military aid to Ukraine. Trump critical of Biden's Ukraine assistance, raising concerns about future support. Analysts uncertain about continued U.S. support for Ukraine under Republican control. As they should be.
Doing here. That's the fascinating part. I don't have a clear answer, except I think Putin wants an end to this war more than he is broadcasting. Now, look, we need to set expectations cautiously. Hundreds.
Citation needed for that. No end in sight for this. There was no concessions, nothing. He didn't. What did they say? So here's what we got out of Putin. Today we hear President Trump say, if I were president, there would be no war. Mr. Putin said, I think that would happen. I can confirm this. He suggested that the two would succeed at ending the war without saying how. I would like to hope that the understanding we have reached will allow us to get closer to that goal, he said, of security for Ukraine and open the way to peace in Ukraine. But he insisted that any enduring resolution had to address the root causes of the war, a phrase that in the past he has used to insist on conditions unacceptable to the West, including a rollback of NATO and neutralization on Ukraine. And he asserted that Ukraine might throw a wrench in any peace effort through provocations or behind-the-scenes intrigues. And then also shifted the burden for ending the war away from the Russian leader who started it. This was Trump, asserting that Mr. Putin wants to solve the problem. Sound familiar? He actually really, really wants to end this. I know there's no evidence that he wants to end it. I know he doesn't even make a rhetorical gesture towards really seriously wanting to end it or explaining how, but trust me, bro. And now it is really up to President Zelensky to get it done. Business execs to cozy up to him. But yeah, like FUCKL, dude.
Hundreds of thousands of people have died in this war. Wars radicalize their participants, definitionally. It is a lot harder to end a 3-year war than it is to end a 3-week one.
That's like, again, just keep in mind, rabid, massive Christian Zionist. All of this rhetoric, whatever the opposite of it would be for Gaza, Israel, that's exactly what gets employed anytime he's talking about that subject. Just the contrast could not be more stark.
The original Istanbul overture to end.
All of us, like, he's like a fucking peacenik, a humanitarian. Nobody wants this. People are dying. Troops, both sides. War is hell. This is terrible. We need to get a deal done. When it comes to Israel's ongoing genocide in Gaza, that's Hamas's fault. Israel's just defending itself, has a right to exist. You're an anti-Semite, blah, 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 blah.
The war early on, that was our best shot. Because when you get deep into a war, they say, well, they bombed this church and they bombed this village and they did a drone strike and they did an attack and they put our bombers, blah, 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 blah. Therefore, we must keep on escalating. Wars have a tendency to do that.
Wow.
Russia has 3 core demands for peace.
Why isn't he like a military analyst full time, you guys?
Neutral Ukraine. This is the key. This is the big 3. And no other program is going to tell you this. And we got this from...
Yeah, Russia. What? No other program's going to tell you this? I just read it in the fucking New York Times, dude. You're not giving like exclusive coverage or breaking news for Russia's like obvious... You don't... demands for this. No shit. None of this is new.
Professor Mersheimer, he said this on the Tucker Carlson program, and it was really, really important. Professor Mersheimer said, these are the 3 things.
So here's Russia's Christmas list.
Neutral Ukraine, not in NATO, and no U.S. security guarantee. No offensive Ukrainian military capability.
Again. Neutralization. Rollback of NATO, neutralization of Ukraine. You won't hear this anywhere else, man. Literally like the paper of record for the United States of America reporting this, and it's not the first time they fucking reported it, obviously. It literally says, long insisted on these conditions. You know, it's like not the first time.
Capability and recognition of Crimea plus the 4 oblasts annexed by Russia. Now, are those 100% required? The answer is we don't know, because the Washington foreign policy establishment has refused to ever negotiate. How do you know what Russia wants when you can't negotiate? They refused before the war, and they blew up negotiations. As I mean,
how do you think he would feel if Biden had like negotiated directly with Hamas, like Trump's team basically did? Maybe he praises Trump when he did that, but
Istanbul, and that was our great moment. Oh, Istanbul was such a human rights crime. Boris Johnson and Tony Blinken and the U.S. security establishment did something unspeakably evil. There was a chance
they aided and abetted a genocide in Gaza. Oh, wait.
To end the Russian-Ukrainian war, and the Russians were willing to do it in the first couple of weeks. I think it was 10 days in.
I mean, true. It is technically true that if you engage in total capitulation and appeasement, that it could have ended. Correct. I think there's more important things to Ukrainians than just ending on exclusively Russian terms, right?
And we said no. And now hundreds of thousands of more Ukrainians were used as cannon fodder for some abstract regime goal of the foreign security apparatus. And Biden sabotaged it. Of all the things in Biden's legacy, this is one of the most unspeakably dark moves of his administration. An entire generation of young Ukrainians died, and Russia took more territory. So it was for nothing. But if we were actually willing to negotiate, maybe peace would actually be possible. If we're willing to say no Ukraine and NATO and will recognize Russia holding Crimea and the Donbass, maybe Russia will let Ukraine keep its military, or maybe they'll evacuate some of the territory they've captured. We don't know it's possible because nobody has tried to negotiate.
Oh, gracious.
Until now with President Trump. I will say of the three guarantees, the most reasonable to the least reasonable. Okay. So no NATO and no security guarantee, no offensive Ukrainian military capability.
Wait, what order is this?
Until now with President Trump. I will say of the three guarantees, the most reasonable to the least reasonable.
Okay, most reasonable to least reasonable. Here we go.
Okay. So no NATO and no security guarantee, no offensive Ukrainian military.
Okay. True. That's probably not going to happen, but it wasn't going to happen under Biden. It's not going to happen here.
Military capability, and then the recognition of Crimea plus the land. Of the most reasonable, I think the land is the most reasonable. They won it. They invaded. They shouldn't have invaded, but they won it. Giving it back.
Oh my God. This is like less about like seeing how badly it aged. It's just like he's like saying like shocking shit. Like just might makes right. Somebody invades, even if it's wrong. If they want it, you should give it to them. Jesus.
And then the recognition of Crimea plus the land. Of the most reasonable, I think the land is the most reasonable. They won it. They invaded. They shouldn't have invaded, but they won it. Giving it back. So
just annexation of territory by force and violating the sovereignty of other countries. That's bad, but if they want it, we have to give it to them. No choice. Ukraine has to give it up.
Back to Ukraine after Russia. That's not going to happen. So the European elite have to take the pill and stomach the fact that Vladimir Putin won back part of Ukraine, including Crimea. Okay, I think I don't like it. He should have invaded. But of all the contentions, that's one that
why even bother saying I don't like it if you're going to play that much defense for it? One, outright justify it. And then two, why even say like this is like the best thing? You didn't have to say that.
I think there is some flex in the joints. Number two, though, is
it's not about peace. They want justice. Yeah, exactly.
A little bit harder.
Like this could stop again if it's total capitulation. Sure.
Which is a neutral Ukraine. Now, there's two parts of that. Ukraine should not be part of NATO, but then the security guarantee, there's like the Minsk agreement, so there's some component there. The last one, just looking at this as an honest onlooker, as an American.
There is absolutely no fucking way he understands the fucking Minsk agreement. He's not even talking like which one, the second or the first.
Have as much skin in the game. Saying that Ukraine can't have offensive weaponry capability, that's basically just saying we want them to be a sitting duck. Is Ukraine really going to invade Russia?
And like part of the terms for the Minsk agreement, if Russia gets whatever they want, it would be a full like neutralization of Ukraine, even though they're already like denuclearized, but like not even like military potentially.
Maybe, or the new territories, I guess. Russia can't demand the disarmament of another country while they are a major power. I think that's a little bit silly.
Okay, but that's in the Minsk agreement. Like, yes, there was potential using the Minsk agreement as a framework for preventing this, sure. But like that's in the Minsk agreement, dude.
Maybe Russia can come to a deal, which is, okay, you get the land, no NATO, and then Ukraine can keep its military. Will they strike that deal? We don't know. President Donald Trump has said that he will know in the first couple of minutes whether or not Vladimir Putin is ready or not. Ukraine would probably only fight to take back the regions occupied by Russia, so this could end up being like an endless multi-decade war. But I want to repeat something. What is Putin doing here? Because Putin is on...
Clearwatch, thank you for redeeming these thingies. I don't know what it's called when you redeem. Highlight my message. If someone invaded my land, I wouldn't stop fighting for peace. I would fight until death or achieve justice. But this is the point where we pull up the... is there someone that you've forgotten to ask? Which is Charlie Kirk's opinion on that. I know you can... Like, the Ukrainian people consent... in this case, or you consent in this hypothetical, but we must remember to ask Charlie Kirk.
On pace right now to win an ugly victory. Ugly. Hard fought. Lots of death. But why is Vladimir Putin getting on an airplane
ugly
and flying to Alaska? Not in Belarus, not in Switzerland, not in Abu Dhabi, not in Doha, but he's flying to America. When was the last time Vladimir Putin was on American soil? Maybe a decade ago? What is...
Okay, that's why he's not a beta, dude. That's like, it's like literally the exact opposite again, like we're just like coping with the same points over and over.
Putin doing here? I have a theory that we're going to explore after the break, because I actually...
And it's not like, what is Putin doing? It's like, what is Putin not getting out of this? And what is Trump doing is what you should be fucking asking if you were in a fucking cult and a MAGA propagandist that's paid handsomely for this bullshit.
Vladimir Putin, deep down, would much rather have a soft working relationship with the United States of America than Russia. Russia and China are not nearly the natural allies that you think they are. And maybe that might be the barrier.
Literally, again, these are just like the same talking points that Trump was briefed on for his Sean Hannity interview. He's just walking through them. So no matter what was going to happen, clearly Trump was going to repeat all of that same shit, is what we just learned.
Lead as to why Vladimir Putin is getting on a plane and flying to Anchorage. Tired of government-run, overpriced...
Jesus Christ. Deep fried fucking leftist audio from Charlie Kirk over here.
...at a monument honoring U.S. cooperation. Russian President Vladimir Putin makes a rare public appearance at a monument honoring U.S. cooperation.
Okay, so I can't fucking do more of that shit. That's enough predictions from Chuck over here for tonight. Jesus fucking Christ. What a shit show. All right. If you're watching on Twitch and you're not following me yet, you should. That way you can know when I go live, which is basically this week every single day, because I'm probably going to be going live tomorrow, which I almost never do, and Sunday. Radical Coder, first time chat in Twitch. Why first time? Shame. If you're watching on YouTube, you should like the stream or subscribe to me and hit the bell. That way you can know when I go live on YouTube. If you want to go through my past VODs or on their timestamps, you can skip around to my segments very, very easily. If you want to support me, again, gift subs, you can donate to me. Donation links pinned to my Twitch chat or YouTube description box. I'm at Straighterade _ everything. It is over. It's 4:17 in the morning, you guys. I gotta get to sleep. But I am sending you... Who's awake? Who's awake? Is Redolent Thought still there? Who's there? I'm sending you to Gus this time. Because Gus is up. And I'll be back. And Coulter, you guys. And Coulter went on trigonometry. And I'm going to watch that tomorrow. I don't know if I'm doing this like fresh and fit, like IRL Tim Pool debate. Maybe it seemed boring. And there's a Piers Morgan panel with Mike Huckabee and Mehdi Hassan. I don't think they directly talk to each other, but we'll see what the hell's up on that. And I still need to cover Obama calling Zaran. So lots in store for tomorrow. It's going to be good. In the meantime, sending you to Gus. And if you're on YouTube, I will be sending you to Rezi, because he is the only person awake on YouTube. And you guys will be getting slop on that side. All right. Have a good one. Bye. See you tomorrow.
Sort of deal. And that to me is a sign that, as I said, I don't know if you watched the live stream, but switched.
Oh! Viewer discretion is advised. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Straighterade for the raid. Thank you, thank you. How you doing? Hey, it's the guy that knows everything about every president. Yeah, that guy. How you doing, Deslamir? Good to see you again. Eddie, good to see you again, buddy. Oh, okay, yeah, good. You must be tired, especially if you streamed a lot. Have a good night. Thanks again for the raid. I know, I do this 8 hours a day. I don't even know how I do it. Where's the mattress sheet, bro? I'm washing it.